Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was sent to Teen Titans. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Fabled Assassin, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The sun rose up over Jump City, bathing the large city in a beautiful orange glow. The city's citizens either woke up and got ready for their day or continued to sleep and rest for the day ahead. But for one person, the ray of sunshine that appeared from the window and onto her forced her to groggily open her violet eyes and glare at the interfering light. The Teen Titan member known as Raven sighed as the light refused to leave. Lifting herself up a little, she raised her hand and encased the curtains in her magic before shutting them fully. Closing her eyes once the annoying task was done, Raven let her head hit the pillow before turning over, allowing her short purple hair to splay about. Only once she got comfortable again did she open her eyes and furrow her brow in thought. Almost everything she owned was dark in color. Blue, black, purple, these were the colors that she loved and had in her room, all in a particular color scheme. So why were the curtains black when hers were purple? These were the thoughts that crossed her mind as she slowly sat up fully and looked at the window. Using her magic again, she opened the curtains and widened her eyes at what she saw. It was the Titan's tower, her home, standing proudly on the small island across from Jump City. Now, seeing that she wasn't in her home, Raven slowly looked around the room she was in. It was plain if she was honest. White walls, no pictures, and the door to the room she was in was open, showing another room with a dark couch just in her view. The bed she was in had a dark wood frame, and the sheets were cream color. Out of the corner of her eye, Raven noticed something that made her freeze in shock. Her clothes were scattered on the floor with another set of clothing in a similar position. Seeing her clothes, Raven immediately checked and realized that she was naked under the covers. Trying to take deep breaths to calm herself, Raven turned her head when she managed to connect the dots. Laying next to her, and still thankfully asleep, Raven saw a man she had never seen before in her life. Holding the sheets close to her body, Raven began to hyperventilate in panic as she started to understand the situation she was in. Still trying to catch her breath, she got out of the bed and took a shaky step on the floor. She quickly got dressed, trying to be as quiet as she could. But just as she managed to put on her cloak, which slightly helped her feel better, she heard the man behind her move. Turning around, Raven watched as he sat up and stretched with a yawn, with the sheet thankfully still covering his lower half. While she oddly watched the stranger wake up, she couldn't help but notice the large scar on the left side of his chest. She blinked as he looked around before finally looking at her in the eyes. They stared, violet eyes meeting deep blue. They were both silent for the longest moment that Raven ever knew. She was quiet because she didn't know what to do. She desperately wanted to teleport away but just couldn't for some reason. It was obvious the man was trying to figure out what to say as well before he finally sighed. "Would you like a tea or coffee? It will probably help." Not knowing what else to do, Raven just nodded slightly. "If you wait in the next room, I'll be out in a minute." Without another word, Raven quickly left the room and shut the door behind her. Now alone, she took that moment to calm herself and took a deep breath. She could hear some shuffling behind the door but walked away and deeper into the room. Like the bedroom, the apartment she was in was plain as well. The walls had no pictures or frames and, while the apartment was quite large and spacious, there was only a large couch and a TV in the room with a coffee table in between. Behind her was the kitchen, which had the usual utensils. Sitting down on the couch, Raven tried to remember everything that happened the night before but struggled for some reason. Flashback, the morning before. Raven was incredibly annoyed at the moment. It has been a full week of non-stop battling with random villains that just appear from nowhere. Each day a bad guy would show up and attack, only for her and her team to beat them again. It was a routine that was getting boring fast. Thankfully, today seemed to be a day where they would be able to catch a little break. Another reason she was annoyed was that her team were doing everything possible to agitate her, even if they didn't know it. Robin kept pestering everyone to train and be on the lookout for threats, even if there weren't any. Starfire would bug her about having a girl's day out, which the thought of made her shiver. Cyborg would constantly ask her to play games whenever she reads a book, and Beast Boy annoys her by making jokes after jokes. In all honesty, she knew they were just being their usual selves. It was herself that was the issue. For some reason, she's been on edge lately. Even the slightest thing has been setting her off without any reason. Meditating did doing nothing for her, which was unusual considering they usually helped keep her emotions in check. Right now, she was trying to read another book but couldn't concentrate. Sighing in annoyance, she stood up and left her bedroom, going straight to the main ops room for a refreshment. Seeing all of her friends in the kitchen, she walked over to the kettle without saying a word before pouring herself some tea, hoping it will help her relax. She heard Robin speak from where he sat at the table. "Hey Raven. Want breakfast?" She didn't answer as she heard someone walk up to her from behind. It's good. She heard Beast Boy say, wakey, wakey, tofu eggs and bakey. The green changelings sang. Herbal tea, Raven replied, hoping they would take the hint and leave her alone. Come on, Beast Boy insisted, just one little taste. It will help you lighten up, cause, you know, you're usually moody. Suddenly snapping around, Raven glared at her friend as her eyes glowed red. No. She screamed at him, subconsciously using her powers to make the pile of tofu eggs that Beast Boy was holding to explode. Everyone stayed quiet in shock, just staring at Raven who held her tea and quickly left the room without another word. Flashback end. Raven was suddenly broken from her thoughts by the sound of a door opening. She glanced in the bedroom's direction, seeing the stranger close the door. Now that the shock of the events was mostly over with, Raven took a second to take in the stranger's appearance. She had to admit that the man was handsome, with blonde spiky hair, deep blue eyes, slightly tanned skin, and oddly enough, 3 whisker marks on each cheek. He wore a black shirt that hugged his body, showing off his physique, and a regular pair of jeans. "Tea or coffee?" he asked, walking over to his kitchen. The man's voice slightly startled Raven. Tea, please," she answered. The man nodded before preparing her drink and a drink for himself, which she saw was black coffee. It only took a couple of minutes, which were quite awkward, before he finally sat down on the couch on the opposite side of her. She noted that he was keeping a little distance, but she didn't know if it was to make her feel easier or for himself to feel easier. Neither knew what to say to the other, and for good reason. The man sighed once again before finally speaking, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember what happened last night." Raven stared in shock, surprised by this. "You don't remember?" she asked in questioning tone. The man shook his head. "All I remember was being here and pouring myself a drink, and then that's it. I can't remember anything else. It's like my memory just stops there." "I don't remember anything either," Raven said, "I don't even know your name." At this, the girl looked away as if she was ashamed that she didn't know the name of the person she spent her night with. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," the man said after a few seconds with a gentle smile. "And you're Raven of the Teen Titans, obviously," he said, nodding towards his TV, to which Raven nodded, understanding how he knew of her. "You can't remember last night either? That's weird." Sipping her tea, which Raven actually liked, she thought, my powers were acting up yesterday, could they be the cause? This has never happened before, though. Thinking about her powers, Raven closed her eyes and concentrated, they're not as out of control as yesterday, at least no more than usual. Odd, she thought. "Listen," said Naruto, getting Raven's attention again, "because neither of us can remember, I can understand if you don't want to talk about it. I mean, you're a hero and I doubt you do this regularly." "I don't," she answered in a stern manner, as if scolding herself, "and I can agree with what you said about not wanting to talk about what happened. It was a one-time thing, so we don't ever have to talk about it." "Right," Naruto replied. "And you don't have to worry about me talking to the news or friends about this, I'll keep this a secret." Raven smiled at that, feeling thankful that the media wasn't going to know about this. She and her team were always bombarded and stalked by reporters, and they all hated it. She was afraid to think how they would act if they knew what just happened. She didn't even want her friends to find out about this. Just the thought of their reaction scared her. Another thought crossed her mind, and it terrified her to no end. She almost snapped her head to Naruto, who just raised an eyebrow at her actions before realizing himself. "Are you wondering if we use protection?" he asked, getting a hesitant nod in response. "Don't worry, I found a couple of condom wrappers in my bin." Hearing this, Raven unknowingly released a breath she didn't even know she was holding. But just as she relaxed, her communicator suddenly went off, making the girl jump in fright. Taking the device from her belt, she opened it up whilst standing and walking off to the side. Hello?" she said to whoever it was. Naruto watched as she paced back and forth with a hand on her forehead and her eyes closed, looking more annoyed by the second. The entire phone call only took a minute at most before she finally sighed, saying, "Alright, I'll be there as soon as I can." "Got to go?" asked Naruto, seeing Raven hang up. "Yeah, Cinderblock is going on another rampage again," Raven replied, shaking her head. Standing up, Naruto walked her to his door and opened it, letting the purple-haired tighten out. "I know this was something that you didn't want, and it must be hard to not remember anything, but if you ever just want to talk." Before he could even finish his offer, Raven used her magic and disappeared into the floor, with her back to him. "You know where I live," he finished, speaking to himself. He sighed, feeling guilty, as though this was somehow his fault. Closing the door, Naruto walked back into his apartment and glanced around with sad eyes. Slowly walking back to his bedroom, he knelt next to his bed and pulled out a small box from under the frame. Opening the lid of the box, he looked inside and stared at the metal plate that was attached to a long black fabric. "And here I hope that I could put my past behind me," he whispered to himself, staring at the symbol of a leaf. It was now close to midnight and Raven was now in her bedroom, sitting on the edge of her bed. She was rubbing her temples in annoyance at what happened today. After talking to Naruto, whose name made her twitch a little, she arrived to see Cinderblock throwing Beast Boy around, who was in the form of a rhino. It was just her luck that Beast Boy was thrown in her direction. Thankfully, Beast Boy turned back to normal at the last second before he slammed into her. After that, anything she would throw at the hulking monster would just bounce off of him without leaving a scratch. Robin would mostly throw exploding discs, but they were ineffective, and so was his bow staff, which he constantly used. Beast Boy was only able to halt Cinderblock's movements when he was a large enough animal, but eventually Cinderblock would manage to overpower and throw him away. Only Starfire could match his strength, and with Cyborg Sonic Cannon, they managed to knock the behemoth unconscious. Right now though, as she tries to meditate and take her mind off of everything that happened, she couldn't help but think about this morning. She felt terrible, just leaving like she did, and especially after Naruto was trying to be nice to her and help her. It was all too much though, not remembering the day before, waking up next to a stranger, and trying to make sense of it all was overwhelming. I still don't understand why I can't remember, she said to herself with a sigh. Getting an idea, she stood up and walked over to the middle of her room. Taking a deep breath, she began to float on the spot before sitting cross-legged in the air, chanting, Azarath Metrian Zinthos, Azarath Metrian Zinthos, Azarath Metrian Zinthos. Opening her eyes, Raven's Violet's eyes turned wide as she fell into a trance. The next thing Raven knew, she was now in her own mind. Looking around the familiar ominous realm, she could easily sense her emotional clones. She didn't really like talking to them as they just remind her of how she was not allowed to feel. If she felt any emotion then she would lose control of her powers. The sound of wings flapping caught Raven's attention. Glancing to her left, she easily spotted a tree planted on a floating rock as a dozen crows stood on the branches. They always watched her with their 4 red eyes. They made her uncomfortable, reminding her too much of her father. She also knew that they all came from anger and she hoped she won't have to visit that emotion. "Rere!" shouted Raven's voice from behind, making the original girl frown. Turning around with a sigh, Raven easily spotted a clone of herself running up to her with a grin. The only noticeable difference between them being the color of their cloaks, as the clone is wearing pink and hers was dark blue. She grunted when the emotion ran up to her and gave her a bear hug. "Happy," Raven said in a strained voice. "You don't usually wander here," Raven said, knowing that this emotion prefers to stay with her happier thoughts. Happy just shrugged as she let Raven go, not caring about the glare being sent her way. "I was bored, plus I was around the area when you arrived." Then Happy stopped and blinked before having a thoughtful look. "What are you doing here anyway?" "I need to try and remember what happened last night," answered Raven. There was no point in lying or hesitating with her own emotions, as they basically know everything she does. But sometimes it did help her thought process when she speaks to them. "Which is why I need to see knowledge." Happy just made an O face and nodded before giggling. As Raven began walking in the direction of knowledge's domain, she realized that Happy was traveling with her as the girl danced around, constantly. Whilst walking, Raven idly noticed that there were a few more crows watching her. Coming up to a large archway, Raven focused on knowledge and walked through the portal that opened. Now, instead of a creepy scenery, Raven and Happy were now in a library of sorts. They looked to be in a building that was kept perfectly clean, with bookshelves lining the walls. The room they were in looked as though it can go on for miles. "I expected you here sooner," said a voice from above. Floating down in front of the 2 ravens was knowledge, another emotion, but with a yellow cloak. Another noticeable difference is that she also wore thick framed glasses and had 1 or 2 books floating around her. She glanced at Raven from the book she was reading. "Passion is already here, waiting." She walked away, ignoring Raven's confused look. Why would Passion be here? She muttered to herself before blushing. It was obvious and she forgot already. Knowledge glanced at Raven before speaking. "I brought her here. Not only does she not remember last night, but she has also been acting odd." Raven just raised an eyebrow at that, now even more confused. She and Happy followed Knowledge to another room, with a table and chairs in the middle. In one of the seats was Passion, wearing a purple cloak. What was odd was that she looked tired and yet satisfied. "Oh, that can't be good," thought Raven with a blush. "I'll be honest," started Knowledge once everyone sat down, or in Happy's case, stayed calm enough to listen. "I am not 100% certain about what happened or how it happened. But I do have a few theories." "Was it Trigon?" asked Raven, wondering if his influence managed to slip past her defenses. Well, it was unlikely, it was a possibility. "Either that or Passion took the reins again," Knowledge sarcastically said, remembering the time that Passion wrote control, went to Earth and flirted with a few guys. "The memory you are looking for is here," said the yellow raven as she held a book with last night's time and date on it. "Obviously I have not seen it, otherwise you would already know." Raven took the book from her emotions hands and held it, feeling scared and worried about what she will see. Taking a deep breath, she opened the book. Flashback, the night before. The Raven, going out at night with her team was a common occurrence as this was when the villains usually try and steal things. They had gotten a call that someone had attacked an armored truck from one of the local banks. The police were no match as the villain used his abilities to stop them. When she and her team arrived, she was genuinely surprised that it was a villain she had never seen before. It was rare but it does happen. This villain liked to call himself Dr. Light and, much to her utter annoyance, liked to use puns about light. They were nearly as bad as Beast Boy's jokes. He stood on top of the overturned truck and spoke, "Your pathetic skills can't outshine the brilliance of Dr. Light." His hands glowed as he fired a beam of light at her and the others, which they all dodged with ease. Robin was the first to act as he jumped, throwing a bird-a-rang as Dr. Light jumped away from the attack. "You're fast," he commented to the leader of the Titans as he brought his hands to the light bulb mechanism on his chest, "but I doubt you'll enjoy moving at the speed of light." Another light beam appeared, bigger and faster than the others, and it quickly slammed into Robin. "Arg!" he shouted in pain, flying through the air. Beast Boy ran up behind Dr. Light, turning into a wolf. He snarled as he tried to bite down on the villain. A wolf is no threat when it's blind as a bat. Dr. Light shouted, taking a weapon from his belt. He threw multiple glowing orbs at Beast Boy, which exploded into a bright light as they hit the ground. But because his eyesight was heightened as a wolf, Beast Boy was blinded and disorientated. Flying down, Starfire fired starbolt after starbolt, but they did nothing as Dr. Light created a barrier that stopped her attacks. Taking hold of an object behind his back, Light dropped his shield and threw the item which landed directly underneath Starfire. It activated, spinning around as a thin veil of light appeared, surrounding Starfire in a bubble that imprisoned her. Seeing an opportunity, Cyborg ripped off a large piece of metal from the truck. "Watch yourself, lightweight," shouted Cyborg, running up to the villain, "things are about to get heavy." He swung his weapon down, just missing Dr. Light as he fell away at the last second. In retaliation, Dr. Light quickly fired a beam of light that hit Cyborg in the chest, with the attack barely affecting him. Laughing, Light stood up and raised his hands, summoning another light attack. This one was slightly different as it glowed red and was a ball in shape. It flew at Cyborg before he could do anything and exploded, somehow encasing him in stone. "What? Let me go," he shouted as he struggled. "Now, if nobody minds," said Dr. Light, walking up to the stuck form of Cyborg, "I'll be taking the gold." "I mind," Raven said, getting the villain's attention. "Azarath Metrian Zinth. She started, only to be hit by one of Dr. Light's attacks. She skidded across the ground, landing on her back quite hard. "A little advice," said Light as he walked up to Raven, "find shorter magic words," he taunted, seeing Raven use her magic and throw a motorbike at him. With ease, he blasted the vehicle to harmless pieces as the small bits of debris bounced off of him. With a smirk, he attacked Raven again and hit her with another beam of light. She flew back and crashed to the ground, pain appearing all over. Something happened though. She was angry, she could feel anger taking control. Trying to calm herself, she tried to warn the villain, "Don't come any closer." "What's the matter?" laughed Dr. Light, afraid of the light. He was about to attack when Raven suddenly jumped at him, her eyes turning red. She flew into the air, her cloak somehow extending as black tendrils appeared from within. They flew at Dr. Light, who backed away in terror. "No!" he shouted in fright as the tendrils destroyed the suit as they grabbed him, "My suit." He clawed at the ground as the tendrils dragged him towards Raven. "No. No. I surrender." He begged but to no avail. "What's the matter?" "Afraid of the dark," Raven said, her voice changing to something demonic. Dr. Light continued to scream and beg as he was dragged into Raven's cloak. Robin, seeing what was happening, ran to his possessed friend, Raven. "Stop," he shouted, hoping to get through to her. Raven gasped as she suddenly took control of herself, backing away and freeing Dr. Light. The man was curled up on the ground, his black suit somehow gray. His eyes were wide as his pupils darted about, showing that he was afraid. "It's okay. You're going to be alright," said Robin, trying to console the villain. Dr. Light rambled to himself, asking for the darkness to stop. Beast Boy and Cyborg walked up to Raven, the changeling asking, "Dude, Raven, what did you do?" Her control slipping, Raven turned and growled at her friend, who stepped back in fear. Knowing that she had to get away, Raven ran, hoping to keep her friend safe. She didn't know where she was running to and she didn't care. She could feel anger trying everything to take control, and Raven was losing. "Azarath Metrian Zinthos," she chanted, hoping it would help. "Azarath Metrian Zinthos, Azarath Metrian Zinthos." As she ran through an alley, she caught sight of a group of teenagers, spray painting a wall with images and words. Seeing them made anger take control as Raven's eyes turned red once again. She grinned evilly, slowly stalking up to her prey. Once she was close enough though, she stopped. She could sense something close by. It was powerful, uncontrollable, demonic. She knew what she had to do, she just knew. She had to somehow make the source hers. Leaving the group of teens who didn't even know she was there, Raven followed the energy to an apartment building. Flying up the wall as fast as she could, she found the apartment and used her magic to teleport inside. She was greeted by the sight of Naruto, sleeping on the couch. Grinning at the opportunity, she floated a little and hovered her way to him, licking her lips along the way. Standing over him, she felt the energy he produced and felt her legs shake. It was intoxicating. Just as she was about to do something, Naruto's eyes snapped open. He jumped to his feet, surprising Raven as she floated back. His blue eyes stared into hers, confusion clear on his face. "What are you doing here?" he demanded to know before gripping his head. His eyes widened as they turned from blue to red, his form changing slightly. His whisker marks deepened and his fangs grew. Raven could see his nails turn into claws as they lightly dug into his skull. His energy changed as well. Whatever he was doing before suppressed it, but now she could sense it all, and it was overpowering. Naruto stopped struggling with himself, standing straight up. He looked at Raven and grinned, with her smirking back at him. Before either of them knew what they were doing, they quickly closed the distance and began to make out. Flashback end. Raven snapped the book shut at that point, already knowing where the rest of her memory was going. Her face was glowing red as steam practically appeared from her ears. Passion had a giddy smile, looking as though she was drunk on something. Knowledge has a blush of her own, but she did mutter, "Interesting," every now and again. Happy just had a grin on her face, like she always did. Taking a deep breath, Raven tried and failed to compose herself. "Right, I think I know what happened," she said, getting Knowledge's undivided attention. "Trigon's influence did cause that to happen, but that influence was gone by the time I found Naruto. I think when I sensed his energy, passion somehow took over and that happened." "That does make sense," Knowledge said with a nod. "But what of this energy that Naruto had? It was definitely demonic in nature, but we could tell he was human. That energy was independent and somehow part of him." "His energy somehow made me react the way I did?" asked Raven. Looking at her original self with seriousness, Knowledge said, "I believe it would be best to go and speak with him at once." Waking up in the real world, Raven sighed. She didn't want to go find Naruto and talk to him. She still felt terrible about what she did, especially after he was nice to her. But she needed answers. Biting her lip, she looked at the time and saw it was 1 in the morning. She had a choice. Either she could go in the morning, with her friends questioning her about what happened and where she was going. Or she could leave now and go see him, but he was probably asleep and possibly mad at her. "Screw it," she muttered, teleporting away. Reappearing in an alley, Raven saw she was just next to Naruto's building. She was about to fly up but decided against it and walked inside. Remembering what number he lived in, she walked up to the door and raised her hand to knock, but stopped. She couldn't bring herself to knock, for some reason. Her heart was beating rapidly as her mind betrayed her and forced her to remember the previous night. Shaking her head, she took a deep breath and knocked. Nothing happened, so she knocked again. This time, she heard a few footsteps before the door opened. Looking up, she could see the surprise on Naruto's face as he saw her. "Oh, I didn't think I would see you again so soon," he said before muttering to himself, or ever, for that matter. Choosing to ignore what he whispered, Raven looked down at the ground. "We, need to talk," she said. Naruto stared and smiled, "Come on in, I'll make you some tea." "Thank you," accepted Raven, stepping inside. She walked over to the couch and sat down, listening as he went to the kitchen and turned on the kettle. Story start. "I'm sorry," Naruto said from the kitchen, his back facing Raven. The purple-haired titan looked at Naruto in surprise, not expecting to hear an apology. "I still don't remember what happened last night, but I feel responsible." "I should be the one to apologize," interrupted Raven as Naruto poured her tea. He turned his head slightly and glanced at her but said nothing. "You were nice to me after what happened and I tried to pretend that nothing happened. And I left when you offered to talk without even saying goodbye." Walking over to the couch, Naruto sat down and handed Raven her tea, who immediately took a sip with a sigh. "It's a lot, everything that happened." Naruto nodded at that, "I know. Not remembering a thing, waking up next to a stranger that you don't even recognize, it's intense." "I actually remember," Raven suddenly said, surprising Naruto as he choked a little on his drink. "I remember everything, thanks to my abilities." Taking a deep breath, Raven began to recount the night before as Naruto listened intently. "For some reason, my abilities have made me on edge lately, and I still don't know why. The other night, my team and I were fighting Dr. Light and I lost control." "Did you kill him?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow, wondering what the connection between that and what happened is. Raven's eyes widened at that before she frantically shook her head. "No. No, God no." She replied firmly, "We don't kill, but I'm afraid that I was close to doing that." Naruto stayed silent, knowing that it must have been hard for her to admit that. "When I lost control, I gave in to my anger." With my abilities, I hurt him physically and mentally. If it wasn't for my friends, I would have done more. Taking another sip of tea to calm herself, Raven continued. I barely managed to get my senses back, but I could tell I was going to lose control again. I was also afraid that my friend saw me like that. So I ran away, hoping that I can do something. But I couldn't and I lost to my anger again. I was close to hurting a couple of innocent people. Seeing that she was starting to hesitate, more than she did when she admitted to nearly killing Dr. Light, Naruto said, if you want to stop then you can. Shaking her head, the Titan replied, no, I was just trying to find the right words. She then looked directly into Naruto's eyes as she gained a slightly suspicious look. Just I was about to hurt those people, I sensed something. I don't know what it was but I followed it and I found you. At this, Naruto widened his eyes slightly but showed no other visible reaction. Raven, however, caught the slight twitch. At first, you were normal, but after a few seconds you began to change physically. I started Naruto. I sensed demonic energy from you, interrupted Raven, narrowing her eyes at him. And somehow I was affected, and then we had we slept together, she said, blushing slightly at not being able to say that word. What are you? She demanded to know, shifting slightly. Naruto could see that she was slowly getting ready to fight if she had to. Not wanting that outcome, he quickly thought of what to do. He didn't want anyone to know about him or his past, and Raven was dangerously close to finding out. There was no other possible way for her to learn anything about him, so if he lied or refused to answer, then there wasn't really anything she could do. But if she knew he lied or if he didn't answer, then she will no doubt press the issue. That entire thought process caused Naruto to shake his head before looking into Raven's eyes. I am human, he answered truthfully. He was human, just a human from another dimension, but still human. As for that demonic energy, I have no idea what you're talking about. That was a blatant lie as he knew what that energy was. Raven looked as though she didn't believe him for a few seconds. You had red eyes, those marks on your cheeks deepened, and I'm pretty sure you grew fangs and claws, she said, listing off the physical changes he went under the other night. You don't remember any of this, and that has never happened to you before? She questioned, obviously interrogating him. Naruto's mind quickly flashed back to the times he did have those features, but nonetheless shook his head, no, sorry. Lived here for over a year and nothing like that has ever happened. This is so frustrating. Raven shouted within her mind, resisting the urge to rub the sides of her head, why can't I tell if he's lying? Taking a few seconds to think of something, Raven sipped her tea again. She wondered what her team would do in a situation like this. Beast Boy would be useless and probably Starfire as well. Cyborg would just ask the same questions that she did and Robin would try and trick him. Thinking about the colorful Titan, Raven has a small idea. What do you do for a living? She suddenly asked, surprising Naruto and herself at the random question. Seeing the raised eyebrow, Raven explained, your apartment barely has anything in it and yet you've been here for a year. Not seeing any harm in the answer, Naruto said, I'm a writer. His answer surprised Raven a little, I've written a few books before I moved here. And as for my apartment, it was only temporary at first. I just haven't gotten around to doing anything with it yet. You're a writer? She questioned, have I read anything you wrote? I highly doubt that, Naruto admitted with an amused look. My work is for adults only. My godfather was the first to write them and I've continued since he passed. Although his were more smut, mine are more story-driven. These didn't sound like a series that she would be into, but it caught her attention somehow, and the title. She asked so that she could see about reading one. Originally it was called Makeout Paradise, those were my godfathers. My series is called True Confessions. They are actually quite popular. Mentally taking note to try and find one of those books, Raven asked another question, hoping he would slip something. Where did you live before moving here? You know, if you're going to ask questions, then I think I should be allowed to ask some of my own, countered Naruto, seeing what Raven was doing. It was smart but obvious. Raven hated talking about herself, so she definitely hated the idea of him asking her questions, but she wanted answers. Fine, she said with an unhappy tone. You ask a question then I ask, happy? Naruto shrugged, but the smirk he held showed his amusement, fair enough. Where are you from? I can't imagine that you learned your powers in a regular school or something. I'm from a world called Azarath, which is in a different realm entirely, Raven answered quickly. Where did you live before moving here? She repeated the question from earlier. So, she's from a different dimension as well. Interesting thought Naruto as he answered, I don't usually live in one place for too long. After a year or two, I move again. But, to answer your question. I last lived in Gotham City, moved because there was too much going on there. Raven nodded at that, understanding that that particular city was dangerous. What was Azarath like? Naruto asked, curious about her homeworld. Remembering her childhood, Raven couldn't stop a small smile from forming, Azarath was beautiful. No other city or world could even compare to it. Naruto wondered why she said was but thought better than ask. He could tell that something happened and it would be too personal for her to answer. Why do you move around? Just haven't found the right place to call home yet, he said before continuing, but maybe this city can change my mind. What's your team like? Even Raven had to admit that the question was a little odd. You would no doubt figure out how the Titans were on TV as they made no effort into hiding who they were. Identity-wise, they did everything they could to hide. But their personalities were fine to show off. Beast Boy is the clown of the team, thinks he's always funny when he's really just a headache and he will do whatever to make you smile. Starfire is still adjusting to Earth's customs and she is annoyingly bubbly but is a good friend. Cyborg loves to build, eat, and play video games with Beast Boy. He also loves throwing a celebration just for the fun of it. And Robin as well, he likes to think he's Batman but with a smile. So, in other words, gets all serious most of the time and focuses on the mission at hand. Pretty much, admitted Raven, but he will defend his friends no matter what and he is a good leader. She went to take another sip of her tea but saw that she had drunk all she had. Seeing the kettle that Naruto had placed on the coffee table, she reached to pick it up. Naruto, who just placed his cup down on the table, saw Raven reaching for the kettle. Picking it up before she reached it, he handed it to her, his hand lightly grazing hers. Raven froze at the contact. Not because of the touch itself, but because she suddenly sensed something. It was the same energy from before, the one that Naruto had denied knowing about. This time, she knew it was coming from him. It may have been a small slip or something, but she sensed it from him. What is it? Asked Naruto, seeing Raven freeze a little. She turned and glared at him lightly. I sense that energy again, she said, making Naruto's eyes widen. He thought he had it all suppressed. I know it came from you. She accused. Tell me, Raven ordered, why do you have demonic energy? Naruto looked as though he was debating with himself but had a hard look on his face. I can't tell you, he said, shocking Raven. Why not? I just can't. He said loudly, standing up before pacing around a little. It looked as though he was trying to stay calm and with great difficulty. He wanted to keep it a secret and he will do his best to make sure it stays his secret. This has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with me. Raven said in shock, also standing, this has everything to do with me. So tell me why. Why is this so important to you? Naruto growled out, angry at how determined she was. What the hell is driving you to learn something that you shouldn't? Without thinking, Raven yelled, because it was my first time. As soon as she shouted, Raven slapped her mouth shut, her eyes widened in shock. Naruto stared at her with wide eyes, not knowing what to say to that. Seconds of awkward silence passed before Raven spoke, ashamed that she said that. You were my first and I need to know why this all happened. Please. Naruto stared at her, feeling more ashamed than ever. He still doesn't remember what happened that night and he knew he wasn't in control of his actions, but he still felt guilty and now even more so. I'm sorry, he said in a whisper. He looked away from her, but whether it was guilt or shame, Raven didn't know. This is something I just can't tell you, Naruto said after a few seconds. I think it's time you leave. Raven felt a mixture of emotions. Anger, sadness, shame. These were just some of the feelings she had at this very moment. She could even feel her eyes watering at how mortifying this was for her and how he acted like it wasn't important. She clenched her fist and took deep breaths in an attempt to control the swarm of emotions she was feeling, but couldn't stop her powers from destroying the cups that held their drinks. Out of the corner of her eye, Raven could see Naruto taking a step back from her. That did it. He was afraid of her now, probably, as well as ashamed that he slept with her. Hugging herself, Raven opened a portal beneath her feet without saying a word. Slowly sinking, she took one last look at Naruto who looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't. The portal closed, leaving Naruto alone in his apartment once again. Once she was gone, Naruto sighed as he slumped onto the couch he was just on. He hated that he shouted, but he didn't want her to press on the issue. How was he supposed to know that it was her first time? Neither of them were in control and yet it happened. He felt really bad, horrible even, but he knew there was nothing that he could do. Maybe if she comes back, I'll apologize, he muttered to himself. After a minute or two, he turned on the TV to try and distract himself, but the first thing to appear was the news about the Titans again, making Naruto sigh as they just so happened to show a good picture of Raven. This is going to be a long night. Story start. 2 weeks. That's how long it has been since Raven last spoke to Naruto. Neither of them has seen the other or even gone out of their way to do so. And while they wanted to talk, Raven more so than Naruto, neither could bring themselves to even try and go to the other. That night was horrible for Raven. She felt more emotion in the short time she spent with him than she had in years, and all of those feelings were sadness and anger. It got so bad that, as soon as she got back to the tea tower and her room, she spent a whole day meditating so that she could stay calm. Her team had questioned why she spent so long in her room and why she was so tense and distant with them, but she refused to answer and barely spoke to them as well. Even after all this time, she was still quite distant with her team, and on their last mission, when the HIVE trio attacked them in their own base, Raven almost lost control of herself again. The trio managed to force each member of the Titans out of the tower, while Robin went missing. When he returned, they stormed the tower, fighting the HIVE trio. But when Raven fought Jinx, it was a one-sided fight. Robin and the others were shocked when they found Jinx with multiple injuries, forcing them to take her to a hospital, while Raven stayed, locking herself in her room. That was a week ago, now though, everyone was in a different sort of danger. Just yesterday, the team found a box that was addressed to them. In hindsight, with their line of work, it would have been smart to have Cyborg scan the box for what's inside or something like that. But instead, they opened the box without a care and found miniature puppets of themselves. Even by her standards, Raven found it creepy. The others loved them, thinking they were gifts from a fan. The boys all had fun with their puppets, having them fight one another. Thinking it looked fun, Starfire had asked Raven if they wanted to have their puppets fight, but Raven tossed her mini-self away and passed, walking back to her room. That same night, Raven was interrupted from her meditation. For some reason, she suddenly felt odd, like she had a feeling something wasn't right. Shaking her head, Raven was about to go back to her meditation when she heard Starfire talking on the other side of her door. Before either of them knew it, their male teammates came out of the darkness and attacked. The fight didn't last long as Cyborg managed to grab them both and hold them in a type of bear hug. Another puppet appeared, calling himself the Puppet King. He had some type of remote and had the puppet versions of the team, with Robin and the others speaking through their puppet counterparts. The Puppet King tried to take the souls out of Raven and Starfire, just as he had done to the others. But, as their souls were being ripped out, Raven managed to use her spell at the last moment that knocked everyone over, forcing the Puppet King to let go of his remote. However, this somehow caused Raven and Starfire's souls to switch, meaning, Raven was now in Starfire's body, and Starfire was in Raven's body. Before they even knew they had switched bodies, Raven and Starfire managed to escape into the sewers and onto the streets of Jump City. Right now, they were panicking and arguing over the whole situation. Starfire, who was inside Raven's body, was hyperventilating as she described everything that happened. As she spoke, Raven, who was in Starfire's body, noticed that, because of their souls switching, their powers remained in their own bodies. Meaning, Raven now had Starfire's powers, and Starfire had Raven's powers. The reason she noticed this was because, the more Starfire continued to panic, the more her powers began to destroy things around them. Quickly reaching over to her friend, Raven said, "Starfire. You have to calm down. My powers are driven by emotion, the more you feel the more energy you unleash." "But what if they find us?" Starfire asked, meaning her male teammates. "What if our friends are doomed? What if I am stuck looking like this forever?" "We'll fix it," Raven answered with slight annoyance. "I don't know how, but we will rescue the boys and get our bodies back," she said with reassurance before realizing what Starfire just said. "What's wrong with the way I look?" "Nothing." Starfire immediately said before suddenly stumbling slightly. She grabbed her head, feeling a little dizzy. "What's wrong?" Raven asked with concern. Starfire gave Raven a small smile. "I believe I was just hungry." They heard birds cry in the distance, drawing their attention to the sky. The girls looked up and immediately noticed a distinctive green bird circling high above them. "It's Beast Boy," Starfire announced, pointing Raven's ash-gray hand to their teammate. Beast Boy caught at them before diving down with his talons extended. Raven, quickly seeing the incoming attack, shouted, "You mean zombie Beast Boy? Run." Grabbing Starfire's hand, they both turned into an alley and ran as fast as they could. "I think we lost him," Raven said, panting a little, "but it won't be long until he finds us again. He may be an idiot, but he is good at tracking." "I wish to fly," Starfire announced, jumping into the air and waving her arms about as if they were wings. But no matter how hard she tried, she would keep falling back to the ground. As they walked down the alley, they described to each other how their powers worked. With Starfire, Raven needed to try and feel happy or any positive emotions, which was difficult for her as she had always suppressed her emotions. And it was the same for Raven's powers because Starfire, a being who thrived on her emotions, needed to be calm and in control of said emotions. Turning a corner, they both heard a growling noise coming from behind. So, turning around, they both froze when they were confronted by a green tiger of all things. Without waiting for the incoming attack, they both ran down further into the alley. "What do I have to feel to use starbolts?" Raven quickly asked. "Righteous fury," Starfire said, hearing a groan from Raven in annoyance. "Alien strength. Boundless confidence." "Never mind," growled out Raven as they turned a corner. Seeing a turn, Raven grabs Starfire and jumps out of the alley they were in, unnoticed by Beast Boy as he continued his path. But before either of them could breathe in relief, they saw a figure move in the shadows before appearing before them. Moving into the light, the girls realized that it was Robin, their leader. Two metallic arms suddenly smashed their way through the wall behind, causing the girls to jump in fright. With no other way in sight, Raven looked at Starfire, "If I can't fly then you have to levitate." "Yes." Starfire excitedly said, completely forgetting the danger they were in. "Wait. You need to focus," shouted Raven, but to no avail. "Azrath Metrian Zinthos." Starfire shouted quickly, launching herself high into the air with Raven holding on to her hand. Thankfully, this got them away from their zombie teammates, but now there was another problem. "I wish to stop. Please tell me the way to stop," Starfire yelled, zooming over Jump City at impressive speeds. Look at the ground and imagine before Raven even got to finish her sentence, she was suddenly lurched towards the ground at the same speed as before, and before she could even prepare herself for the incoming impact, they slammed hard into a pile of rubbish, which managed to break their fall. "Remind me never to let you fly my body again," Raven sarcastically muttered. Starfire, groaning as she picked herself up, sniffed her arm and reared her head back with a look of disgust. "Ugh. I smell like the breath of a Snervian blorkworm." "Raven, what are you?" Raven quickly slapped her hand around Starfire's mouth, dragging her deeper into the rubbish, just as Robin and Cyborg walked past them, clearly scouting out the area in search of them. Not seeing their targets, they both gave a zombie-like groan as they wandered off. Waiting until she was sure they were gone, Raven released a breath she didn't even know she was holding, as she let herself relax a little. "What are we going to do?" Starfire asked, clearly distraught over the whole situation. "I don't know," answered back Raven. "How are we going to save our friends?" "I don't know." "How are we going to turn ourselves back to normal?" "I don't know." Raven shouted, uncharacteristic, slamming a fist into the ground which caused some cracks to appear. Starfire stayed quiet at that, not expecting the sudden anger that Raven showed. However, a voice appeared from behind which caught their attention. "Raven?" Turning, Starfire was surprised to see a blonde male she didn't recognize staring right at her. She was also surprised that he seemed familiar with Raven. As far as she knew, Raven didn't have any friends outside of the team. Now realizing that the person was waiting on her saying something because he thought that she was Raven, Starfire nervously began to talk. Hello." The boy stared just as the real Raven slapped her own forehead, wishing this wasn't happening right now. Out of everything that was happening, this she did not need. "You're not Raven," he said like it was obvious. "No she isn't," Raven said with an edge in her voice. "What the hell are you doing here, Naruto?" she asked, clearly not happy to see him. Naruto looked at Starfire and narrowed his eyes slightly. "Weird. Raven's chakra signature is different. It's now in Starfire's body," he thought. "Now you sound like Raven," he said after a few seconds, emphasizing on the word you, all while acting as though he doesn't hear the anger in her voice. Starfire just stood still as she watched the exchange with interest. "And why are you asking why I'm here? You know I live here." Blinking in response, Raven looked and realized she and Starfire had landed at the back of Naruto's apartment building. What were the odds? Of course, Raven muttered with a frown, wondering what the odds of her and Starfire landing behind this particular building were. "Now, why are you in Starfire's body and vice versa?" he asked, walking towards the building he lived in. Starfire followed after but saw that Raven was not. Going over to her friend, Starfire began to drag a complaining Raven inside. Before long, Raven was sat on a familiar couch with a frown, and Starfire was looking around with curiosity clear on her face. Naruto walked into the room with a tray in his hand, holding 3 mugs and a teapot. "So, are you going to answer my question?" he asked once he set the mugs down for the girls. Without missing a beat, Raven asked back, "Are you finally going to answer mine?" Starfire awkwardly drank her tea as she watched, interested in what was happening. She was beginning to wonder how they knew each other and why Raven was acting the way she was. Naruto didn't seem to react to Raven's question, but Starfire decided to answer his question instead. "We are attacked by the Puppet King, who has trapped our friends' souls into puppets. We do not know how he did this, but it had somehow caused us to switch bodies instead." Raven glared at Starfire for answering but said nothing. "Kinda sounds like Ino's mind transfer jutsu, but more like a different version of it," Naruto idly thought as he took a sip of his tea. "And I'm guessing you have no idea how to reverse this." "If we did, we would be doing something about it, wouldn't we?" Raven snapped. "How is it that you two know each other?" Starfire finally asked after a few seconds, with the question having bugged her for a few minutes now, especially with how Raven was acting. Raven looked unsure how to answer. She still didn't want anyone on her team to know what happened, especially Starfire who was horrible at keeping secrets. "We met a few weeks ago," Naruto answered, surprising Raven at how willing he was to answer, "but we had a falling out recently." At this, Raven scoffed. Falling out was putting it mildly. "We're leaving," announced Raven after a few seconds, surprising Starfire. She stood up and headed for the door, with Starfire looking apologetic. With a heavy sigh, Naruto called out, "You're going to need my help." As soon as Raven opened the door, she froze at what Naruto said. "Your help?" She spat out like she had to get rid of a bad taste in her mouth. "How could you possibly help?" Starfire actually took a couple of steps back in fear. She has never seen Raven this angry or emotional before, not in all the time that she knew her. Taking a glance at the oddly calm male, she was now desperate to know what happened between them. "Neither of you can use the other's powers," he said, catching their attention. "And how do you know that?" "If either of you knew how to control your abilities, then neither of you would voluntarily be in a pile of rubbish," Naruto answered. "As much as you dislike the idea of me helping, you don't really have much of a choice. Besides, you need all the help you can get." "What do you mean?" Starfire asked in a questioning tone. "Even though your teammates are trapped in puppets, their bodies are probably only using basic instinct with them being controlled. Even though they don't have their souls, their bodies know fully how to use their own abilities." He then gestured to the girls, "But you two are different. Because you both swap souls, your instincts are all wrong, and you are basically fighting against your body's muscle memory. This gives the Puppet King a huge advantage. Plus, there's also the fact that you'll both be holding back as neither of you wants to hurt your friends." Raven scoffed again, "And you think you can even the odds?" she asked, incredulously. "I know how to fight. Probably better than Robin as I've had more experience." "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" Raven thought with a furrowed brow. "Fought more than Robin." From what he told her, Naruto was a rider and he couldn't have been much older than her. So how would he have more experience fighting? It didn't make sense. While she was thinking, she never noticed that Naruto left the room, just leaving her and Starfire, who turned to look at her friend. "I believe we should accept his offer." Snapping out of her thoughts, Raven frowned, which Starfire saw. "The Puppet King is controlling our friends, and I do not wish to hurt them." As much as she wished to deny everything that Naruto said, Raven had to admit that what he said was true. She didn't want to hurt her friends, and she still couldn't use Starfire's powers. Who would have thought that, after years of suppressing her emotions, it would be difficult to let her emotions take control? Naruto opened his door, showing that he changed his clothes. Instead of a simple pair of denim jeans and a white long-sleeved shirt that he wore before, he was now wearing a dark gray form-fitting hoodie over a pair of black cargo pants with black boots. He wore the hood up, showing that it shadowed his hair and eyes. All you could see was his whisker marks and smirk. "I'm ready to go." "But we didn't want your help," argued Raven, completely forgetting the fact that she mentally admitted that what Naruto said was true. She also managed to forget that Starfire just said they could use his help. Walking over to the door, he opened it and waited for them to leave. "Yeah, I figured you would try and not accept my help. But I thought this would be a lot easier." At this moment, Raven wished she had her powers back so that she could throw him around. Seeing how both he and Starfire were staring at her, she sighed before walking out of the apartment. "Do we have any way to find where the Puppet King is hiding?" asked Naruto as the group walked through an alley, checking corners in case of an ambush. "Why would he be hiding?" Raven asked snidely. "Because, from the way you described him, he's a puppet," Naruto answered back sarcastically before coughing a little. "It is incredibly unlikely that he will be strong or something, otherwise he would have attacked you Titans head-on, instead of hiding in the dark when you were all asleep. He still sees you both as a threat, so he'll be somewhere else while your friends try to find you." That shut Raven up just as Starfire pointed to the sky. "Look," she said a little too loudly. The two looked up to where Starfire was pointing and quickly saw a green bird flying away. "It's Beast Boy." Without saying a word, the three ran after the green changeling. It was not easy, chasing after a bird as the three kept having to turn corners through the alley and down a street. There were a couple of times where the group actually managed to lose Beast Boy, but they were quick to find him again. It wasn't long until they managed to follow Beast Boy to an abandoned theater. "Seriously," Naruto whispered as they all crouched on a roof to survey the area, "why is it that bad guys always go for abandoned places? That's like the first place anyone would look." Raven quickly shushed him as they all ducked just as Beast Boy appeared from the warehouse as a Doberman, looking around. They watched as the zombie hero sniff around for over 10 minutes before finally moving on to a different spot. Seeing their chance, the three ran to the warehouse and hugged the wall. "Even the windows are boarded up," Naruto said as he tried to rip a couple off. "It will make too much noise if we do that." "Then getting to the roof is our best bet right now," pointed out Raven as she looked up. Hearing this, Starfire smiled as she put her hands on Raven's shoulders. "Now do just as I instructed. Think of something joyful." Naruto had to bite his tongue to keep a snarky comment to himself. Joy and Raven didn't really mix, and he knew this from the small amount of time he has known her. As Starfire began to list off things that make her happy, Raven closed her eyes and, after a few seconds, began to fly with both Naruto and Starfire holding her hands. Instead of the immense speed that Starfire flew at earlier, Raven managed to fly at a perfect pace as they made it to the roof without anyone noticing. Once they landed, Starfire clapped a little, very, very good. What was your joyful thought? You don't want to know, Raven replied, glancing at Naruto without the others noticing. Starfire persisted until Raven sighed, getting their attention as they wanted to know, imagining a life without a certain blonde. Starfire didn't seem to understand, but Naruto frowned, finding it incredibly obvious it was meant for him. He then sighed to himself. I knew she was angry, but does she actually hate me? He thought as he walked over to a roof door with a padlock, then again, I can't exactly blame her for hating me. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea for me to come along. Starfire, with Raven's instructions, calmed herself and managed to use Raven's powers to break the lock with perfect efficiency until she got a little carried away and basically blew the doors open. Sneaking in through the rafters, they saw the Puppet King standing in front of a cauldron filled with pure white flames. That can't be good, Naruto whispered just as the Puppet King held the trap titans above the fire. Starfire, not wanting her friends to die, quickly acted and used Raven's powers to encase Robin and the others in magic before bringing them to her. Unfortunately, this also brought the Puppet King's attention to them. No. Bring them back to me. He ordered as Robin and the others appeared from the shadows around him. They looked at their master before turning to look at their targets. That can't be good, Naruto said just as Cyborg used his sonic cannon, firing at the rafters. Both Raven and Starfire jumped away and were just able to fly, albeit with some difficulty. Naruto managed to use a rope and slide his way down to the ground. He shook his hands, thank you whoever invented gloves, he said, thankful he didn't get rope burn. Reacting on instinct, Naruto just managed to duck as Robin jumped over him with his leg extended. The Titan leader spun in the air while taking out his bow staff. He swung it down onto Naruto, who just blocked with his arms. Taking this chance, Naruto reached out and grabbed Robin's arm before bringing him in and kneeing him in the stomach. Robin seemed to grunt and he stumbled back, holding his stomach. He then ran at Naruto again and started to punch and kick as fast as he could. Naruto blocked all the attacks with ease before sweeping Robin off his feet. He then brought his own foot into the air and slammed his heel into Robin's stomach. Naruto watched carefully as Robin stopped moving for a moment before the possessed titan suddenly pulled out a bird-a-rang. Naruto jumped back as Robin barely sliced into his trousers. It didn't cut him, but he needed to be more careful. Picking up the bow staff that Robin dropped only seconds ago, Naruto spun it around a few times before taking a stance. Not waiting for another second, they both ran at each other. Sorry. Shouted Starfire as she used Raven's magic to throw crates and items at Beast Boy. She was still holding on to her trapped friends as she flew. The Changeling dodged most of the projectiles but was hit a few times. Even though Starfire knew that she was not fighting her friend, it still made her upset that she had to fight him all the same. Beast Boy, who changed into a hawk so that he could keep up Starfire in the air, weaved through the air, dodging boxes. With his talons extended, he aimed at Starfire, but a crate was suddenly slammed into him, throwing him against a wall nearby. Turning back to his original form, Beast Boy rubbed his head before staring at Starfire again. He then shifted into a large gorilla as he beat his chest and roared. Grabbing onto a rope, which surprised Starfire as it should have been impossible to take his weight, Beast Boy began to swing towards her, easily bashing away anything that Starfire threw at him. Raven ducked as she avoided Cyborg swinging at her. She cursed herself slightly as she couldn't do anything against her friend. She didn't have Starfire's strength or starbolts. All she could do was fly, and even then, she had to concentrate to do that. Come on, righteous fury, Raven muttered to herself, remembering what Starfire said to her earlier. Gasping as her back hit a wall, Raven flipped over Cyborg as he punched the wall where her head just was. This gave Raven a quick moment to breathe as Cyborg seemed to be stuck. Raven began to shake her fists about a little, trying with all her might to will some starbolts, but nothing happened. Damn it. Shouted Raven as she saw Cyborg rip his arm out of the wall and turn to her, changing his arm into his sonic cannon. Reacting quickly, Raven jumped off the rafter they were on, Cyborg's attack barely missing her. However, just as she began to fly, Cyborg reached over and grabbed her foot, swinging her down into the ground. With the air being knocked out of her, Raven stayed on the floor as she groaned in pain. Looking back up, she gasped when she saw Cyborg point his sonic cannon right at her head before he planted his foot onto her stomach. Cyborg was then knocked back a little just as Robin was thrown into him, looking worse for wear. Naruto landed next to Raven, offering a hand to help her up, but she just ignored him as she stood up. Thanks, she grunted out, clearly not happy that he saved her but was at least a little grateful. Don't mention it, Naruto replied as he held the bow staff over his shoulder. He had a smirk on his face, showing that he was enjoying this. I haven't had this much fun in years. Standing up, Robin took out another two-boomerang and threw them. Naruto was about to use the bow staff to deflect them when they slammed into the ground in front of Raven and him. They then exploded into a cloud of gray smoke. Both Naruto and Raven covered their faces as the smoke spread, blocking their sight. Robin reached into his utility belt and brought out a disc before throwing it into the smoke and, after a second or two, it exploded in a large ball of fire. Both Cyborg and Robin were far enough so they were safe. "I've had enough," shouted Raven, getting the two titans' attention as they looked up. They saw that Raven was floating while holding Naruto by the back of his hood. Her eyes glowed green as her right hand formed a starbolt. Shouting, she threw starbolts at the wires that held the rafter up, forcing it to fall to the ground with both titans on it. "Raven? Help!" shouted Starfire from the ground. Looking down, both Naruto and Raven saw Starfire being held by Beast Boy, who was still in the form of a gorilla. Just a few feet from them was the Puppet King who held the trapped titans as he ran towards the cauldron. Getting an idea, Raven slightly lifted Naruto who seemed to understand what was about to happen. "No," he said, just as Raven held him back, "not a good idea." She threw him as hard as she could towards the Puppet King. Naruto had his arms in front of him as he flew through the air at high speeds. It only took a second for him to slam into the Puppet King. Easily landing on his feet, Naruto grabbed the Titan puppets in one hand and the controller in the other. With a smirk, he tossed the controller in the flames behind him. "No!" shouted the Puppet King as the flames grew, just as he began to shake violently. The trapped titans glowed before their souls were released, quickly flying back into their original bodies. Then both Raven and Starfire gasped as their souls left their bodies before returning to their rightful place. "I am me," shouted Starfire after Beast Boy let her go, "and you are you." "We're back," yelled Cyborg with a cheer. Their small celebration was interrupted as the Puppet King began to yell, "No. The controller." "Without it," he said as he tried to crawl to the cauldron. "I'm just a," he trailed off as his body became a lifeless puppet, falling over just next to the cauldron. "Good riddance," said Beast Boy as he changed into random animals, clearly happy to be back to normal. "Let's celebrate," Cyborg shouted, bringing the girls into a hug, "our treat of course. You girls deserve it." The group walked towards the exit before Raven took a step back. "I'll meet you all there," she said, "I just have to make sure of something." "Will you be alright?" asked Robin, not keen on leaving a friend behind. Yes, the Puppet King was defeated and the cauldron's flames extinguished themselves, but something could always happen. Raven nodded as the group left. "Why were you hiding?" she asked, turning to Naruto as he stepped out from behind a pillar. He sent her a smirk. "Why did you throw me to the Puppet King? You could clearly use Starfire's abilities." "You deserved it," Raven said with a glare. Naruto sighed at that but couldn't blame her. Even he could admit that he did deserve it. "You weren't happy with Starfire finding out about me. I doubt you wanted the rest of the team to know. Would have made questions." Raven stayed silent for a second before asking, "Why did you help us? You could have just let us leave like I wanted. We would have still beaten the Puppet King. In the end, we had enough control over our abilities that we would have won." Naruto stayed silent, not knowing what to say. He knew that Raven disliked him, maybe even hate him, so saying something like he just wanted to help wouldn't work. "Please answer me this time." With another sigh, Naruto said, "I'm sorry." "Sorry?" repeated a confused Raven, "Sorry for what?" "For everything," he answered. "Well, I may not have ruined your life, I wasn't in control of my actions, and I still hurt you deeply, and I couldn't even give you a reason why. My past is something I wanted to keep secret because I am ashamed of it. I wanted it to die with me so that no one will know." "What kind of life did he have?" thought Raven as she listened intently. "I'm still not ready to tell my story," he said, disappointing Raven. "But, given enough time, I might be able to tell a friend," he said, extending a hand out to a surprised Raven. She stared at his hand for what felt like hours. He was willing to be a friend. This all seemed ridiculous to her. "I can't forgive you for what happened, but I can at least understand that neither of us was in control of our actions that night if what you just said is true." She then surprised Naruto as she reached out and shook his hand. "Thank you for your help, Naruto." He smiled as she smirked a little before they separated. "I'll see you around, Raven. You're free to come by my place if you ever just want to talk." She nodded as she watched him walk out of the abandoned theater. Raven honestly couldn't believe that he was willing to be her friend, but if this was a way to get answers, then she was also willing. With another smirk, she opened up a portal and sunk into it as she idly thought. "Didn't he say he writes books?" Story start. After everything that happened 2 nights ago, with the Puppet King and with her and Naruto meeting some sort of middle ground, all Raven wanted was to have a nice long sleep. Instead, with a great win under their belt, the rest of the Titans decided to celebrate. She was dragged along to the pizzeria that her team frequented a lot and actually had a bit of fun. And then the team decided to take the party back at their home, where Beast Boy kept offering everybody tofu. Right now, Raven hated Beast Boy and his damned cooking. She had politely taken a small portion of his tofu and eaten some. And because of that, Raven now felt sick to her stomach. Tofu never agreed with her, and Beast Boy's cooking made it even worse. Now, looking in her bathroom mirror, she nearly looked as green as he did. With a sigh, she walked over to her bed, taking off her cloak along the way, and sat down on her mattress. She had wanted to sleep, but the partying stopped all those plans. Glancing to her side table, she stared at the books she got earlier today. Thankfully, the team took a rest day before the celebrations, so she had enough time to go to a local bookstore she usually goes to find Naruto's books. What she didn't expect was to see over 20 of his books, though 12 of them were red, titled Make Out Paradise, and written by someone calling themselves the Toad Sage. The rest were blue books, written by Kurama and named True Confessions. These were the ones that Raven remembered Naruto wrote himself. She bought the whole series and was warned by the cashier that the red ones were just smut. As she stared at the books in her room, Raven shrugged and picked up the very first Make Out Paradise. She opened the book and began to read. Not even 5 pages in, Raven slammed the book shut as she blushed red, getting rid of the green she had earlier. Steam was literally coming out of her ears as she shakily placed the book back on her table. How can anyone write something so dirty? Raven nearly shouted, shaking the blush off her face. Naruto's godfather wrote that. This made her both worried and curious as to how he writes. As she reached for the first blue book, titled True Confessions. The Sins We Bear, Raven couldn't help but wish that Naruto wrote it better than the other ones. She read the first page, and then another, and before she knew it, she was already 4 chapters in. It was incredibly well written and, while she wasn't one for romance novels, she can see why his books were held in high regards. While still reading the book, Raven stood up and left her room, heading for the kitchen in the main ops room so that she could make herself some tea. "Oh, hey, Raven," a voice said, surprising Raven out of the book. She looked up and blinked, surprised that she was already in the kitchen boiling the kettle. Looking, she calmed down when she saw it was Robin that spoke. "Hey," she replied with a nod in her usual monotone voice. He nodded from where he sat at his computer. "Do you mind helping me quickly?" he asked as Raven poured her tea. She walked over and sat on the chair next to him. "I'm making a case report for the other night and I need to know what happened with you and Starfire." "And you can't ask Starfire because?" Raven asked, trailing off so that he could answer. "Because she usually exaggerates everything that happened," he said with a deadpan look as Raven nodded, agreeing with that statement. "Besides, I need to ask you something." Raven raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Something doesn't add up," he started, leaning back in his chair and folding his arms with his eyes shut. "While I was trapped in that puppet, I could still sort of see and hear everything that was going on. It was muffled and a little blurry, but I could still hear and see." This worried Raven a little. "What confuses you? Did you and Starfire get any help?" he asked. "I could hear someone's voice that didn't sound like you were the puppet king. It definitely wasn't the guys because they were with me so I would have known." "Damn it," Raven thought with a frown. "I was hoping he wouldn't notice." She couldn't say that he might have heard something, he would never believe that. "Starfire and I were alone. Maybe it was the puppet king's voice echoing around. That might have distorted the voice to you, especially if it was kind of muffled." Robin thought it over. "That did make sense sort of, yeah, guess that's right. Thanks," he said, typing on the computer. "And as for what Starfire and I did when we got separated. We went through the sewer system and wound up in the middle of the city," she explained as Robin typed everything down. "As we were trying to figure everything out, we had to avoid you, Cyborg, and Beast Boy. Eventually, we followed Beast Boy to the theater, and you know the rest," Raven said, leaving any mention of Naruto. She would need to speak to Starfire and ask her not to say anything either. Typing for another minute, Robin nodded. "All right, thanks. I've got everything I need." Raven nodded at that, relieved that her leader believed her. "Good night, then," she said, leaving as she took a sip. She was hoping to get back into her book. Watching her leave, Robin frowned. Well, her idea did make sense. Puppet King's voice was too distinctive, so the voice he heard wasn't anything like it. Plus there was also the bruises he had on his stomach and arms. Starfire's strength would explain the bruises, but the size was too large for her hands and feet. The bruises on his arms matched his bow staff, which also raised the question of who used his weapon against him, as neither Raven or Starfire could use a weapon as far as he knew. He shook his head. He would trust his friends with his life, there was no question about that. But he wouldn't trust anyone he hasn't met, especially if one can use his weapon against him. It was now the morning after and Raven yawned as she entered the kitchen. Her friends weren't awake yet, apart from Robin who was doing his morning training somewhere else in the building, so she enjoyed the rare peace and quiet while it lasted. Pouring herself another cup of tea, she used her magic and brought a teaspoon to her. But, just as it got close enough, her magic disappeared and the spoon fell to the floor. Raven raised an eyebrow at it but shrugged. She was still waking up, so she just wasn't concentrating enough. That and the fact she didn't get a lot of sleep last night, having stayed up later than she meant to, reading Naruto's book. So far she was already a few chapters in the second book, True Confessions. Illusion, she was beginning to be a fan of the series. She idly thought of going to Naruto just for his autograph and chuckled at the thought. He would probably be very confused at her sudden appreciation of his novels. Thinking of her new friend, Raven felt better knowing that she was making progress with him. "Hello friend Raven," announced Starfire, scaring Raven enough for her to accidentally use her magic to make her tea explode out of the cup. "Sorry," Starfire said with a giggle at Raven's scowl. Raven begrudgingly cleaned up the mess that Starfire made quickly and poured herself another cup. The kettle was still boiling, so at least she didn't have to wait. "Good morning, Starfire," she said with a nod after taking a sip of her herbal tea with an appreciative sigh. "It is another glorious day. Would you wish to do the hanging out?" asked Starfire, always happy for the chance to be with her friends. "We could go shopping or to one of your many tea shops." "Sorry," interrupted Raven, not really caring that she did interrupt. "I'm hoping for a day off from work." She meant fighting villains, but a day out with Starfire was also a lot of work. Starfire's look saddened for a split second before brightening back up. "I was hoping we could invite Naruto to join." Raven was fast as she dropped her tea and slapped her hands over Starfire's mouth, shushing her as she made sure none of the boys were around. Once she made sure the coast was clear, she said, "Starfire, no one can know about Naruto, at least not yet." Blinking in confusion, Starfire's big green eyes basically asked why she shouldn't have mentioned Naruto. Bringing Starfire to the kitchen table, Raven sat down and rubbed her head. "Why must we keep friend Naruto a secret?" asked Starfire, her head tilting slightly like a puppy. "Because," started Raven before falling silent as she made herself her third cup of tea. She still couldn't tell Starfire the reason why, as Starfire was one of the biggest loudmouths she had ever seen. "Because both Naruto and I are working on our friendship. If the others know of him and how we met, then things would get really difficult." Looking back at her friend, Raven could see that Starfire still didn't fully understand, "and I need you to not mention Naruto at all, or I will be angry." Starfire gulped at that. She had seen Raven angry and never wanted to see that again. "I understand a little," she said before asking, "if we are secret about this, may we visit him? He is my new friend as well." Raven groaned at that. Why does she need to make friends with everybody she meets? She thought to herself in annoyance. Not now. Maybe later, but not now. "Do you have any other questions?" she asked, taking a sip of her tea. "Is friend Naruto courting you?" Starfire asked with big innocent eyes, making Raven choke on her tea in shock. Out of anything she could have asked, she asked that. Raven thought as she coughed, being able to breathe again. "No, we are not dating," Raven said with gritted teeth. She wondered why Starfire had to be so innocent. Her sister, Blackfire, was so different it was almost unbelievable. "Please don't forget that this is a secret." Starfire nodded, making the zip shut gesture over her mouth. The door opened as Beast Boy walked through with a yawn. "Yo. What are we talking about?" he asked, going over to the kitchen and rummaging through the fridge. Immediately, Starfire answered with a high-pitched nothing. Thankfully, Beast Boy thought nothing of it as Raven rubbed her head again. Why did she have to have a headache so early in the morning? As if the world was trying to add to her annoyance, the alarms blared in the tower, alerting all of the Titans that something was happening within the city. Within seconds, Robin and Cyborg appeared from the halls. Heading straight for the computer, Cyborg groaned a little. "Oh, come on. Dr. Light's already out and is trying to steal from the museum." "How did he get out so fast?" asked Beast Boy. "I thought he'd be out for a long time after what Raven did to him." Raven frowned at that and looked away. "Please don't remind me." "Doesn't matter right now," Robin said, "let's get down there and stop him. Titans go." Naruto sneezed as he typed into a laptop. He was working on his 10th book and was beginning to get annoyed. He has been working on it for a few weeks and has managed to type out a few chapters before deleting it. He has done this a few times and has done it once again. This isn't the first time he has ever had writer's block, but that didn't make it any less annoying. With another heavy sigh, Naruto leant back into his couch and stared at the ceiling. Deciding to take his mind of the matter and to get some fresh air, Naruto stood up and left his apartment. Once he made sure that the door was locked, he walked out of the building and took a deep breath. He frowned a little. Even after living in this world for a while, he still couldn't get used to the smell of the city, as he preferred the scent of nature. With no destination in mind, Naruto began to walk down the street, surrounded by all the citizens of Jump City. This was something he found odd. All his life he had wanted to stand out, to make people notice him. Now, it was the exact opposite. He wanted to blend in so that no one will remember him. Of course, that plan failed because of Raven and their whole night together. He chuckled a little to himself as the thought of Raven appeared in his mind. He had been thinking of the Titan a lot more nowadays, mostly because they all keep appearing in the news. Which just so happened to be now. That Dr. Light guy that Raven mentioned was out again and was stealing something from a museum. He was now behind bars, and the Titans got another win. After their argument a couple of weeks ago, he felt like absolute crap with how Raven reacted. Helping fight off the possessed Titans the other night actually felt a little therapeutic to him. But thanks to them being on good terms, he was actually able to let go of his guilt. Turning around a corner, Naruto was broken out of his thoughts when someone bumped into him. He easily managed to steady himself within a second, but the person he walked into fell to the ground. Looking, he was completely shocked when he saw Raven of all people. But something was different. Her cloak was gray instead of dark blue. "Raven? What are you doing here?" he asked, helping the girl up. Raven looked at him and teared up, shocking Naruto. I'm sorry," she said with a sniffle, "I wasn't watching where I was going." It's okay," Naruto said, not sure what to say at this moment. With the way she was acting, it was like she was someone else completely, and after the other night he couldn't rule that possibility out. But her chakra was the exact same. "I'm sorry that I was so angry with you the other day, and I'm sorry T that I hated you as well, and I'm sorry that I left you when you were only offering to help," and Raven was interrupted by Naruto, who gently placed his hand over her mouth. "Raven, it's okay, you don't need to apologize," he said with a kind smile, hoping that it will cheer up the oddly sad girl. "What are you doing here anyway?" The girl looked shy as she answered, "I don't know. After our Raven was separated, everything was getting loud, then the others said they were going to put us back together because they didn't want us here anymore." By the end of her explanation, Raven was crying again and onto Naruto's shoulder. "Wait, what did you mean by Raven was separated?" Naruto asked in confusion, once Raven had calmed down and apologized for getting his shirt a little wet. "Aren't you Raven?" I'm one of her emotions," she said, making Naruto blink. An object somehow split Raven into 5 of her P personalities. "Are you our shyness?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. If she really was one of her emotions, then this would explain the odd behavior. "Timid," she said quietly. She then looked at him with big eyes, "I want to go home." With a soft smile, Naruto said, "How about I take you home?" She nodded and then surprised him even further by taking hold of his hand. After a second, Naruto gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, and they both began to walk towards the Titan's tower. "You know, this isn't exactly how I thought my day would go." "I'm sorry that I ruined it," Timid said with a sad look, thinking she ruined his day. Naruto gave her hand a slight squeeze again, getting her attention. Timid, I am happy when I spent time with Raven, and I am happy that I got to meet one of her emotions," he said with a smile. Timid blushed at that and tried to hide in her hood after she put it up, but she smiled either way. "We should be there in a half hour at least." "I can take us there now," Timid offered quietly, and before Naruto could say anything, she waved her arm as a portal opened beneath them both. Naruto stayed silent as he examined the portal he was sinking into. It really reminded him of the Nara's famous control over shadows, although he doubted any of them could travel from within their shadows. Thinking of the Naras made Naruto's face drop a little before he shook his head in case Timid saw. It only took a few seconds and they were now in front of the T-Tower. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the first thing that caught his attention. Right next to the front door was a completely destroyed bed, surrounded by shards of glass. He shook his head, deciding not to ask about that. Walking over to the door, with Timid still holding his hand, Naruto pressed the doorbell. He waited a second before the video comm turned on. He quickly recognized the person on the other side. "Hey. We're a little busy here, but can we help you?" Cyborg asked. "Yeah, hi, I'm guessing you're trying to find all the Ravens?" Naruto asked, wondering what other emotions the Titans have found. Cyborg looked surprised. "Yeah, we are. How do you know that?" he asked. Naruto stepped aside a little, allowing the camera to see Timid. Now Cyborg looked even more surprised. "Wow, you found her. We've been trying to find her. The elevator's coming down, just come on up and sorry in advance for the mess." The video turned off as the doors opened. What did he mean by mess? Naruto muttered to himself, wondering if he should be worried. He also wondered why he was being allowed to enter the tower like this. Shouldn't they be more suspicious about people showing up at their door? Timid stayed quiet as they rode the elevator up the building. Hearing the ding, Naruto glanced up as the doors opened and widened his eyes. The room he walked into wasn't just messy, it was a disaster zone. Rubbish and junk piled everywhere, there were even stains on the roof and an odd smell that Naruto didn't even want to know about. Walking further into the comm room, Naruto saw the other 4 Titans all sitting on the large sofa. Starfire saw Naruto and was happy to see her new friend. She was about to go over and greet him until she remembered Raven's words about keeping him a secret. Robin, seeing Timid, stood up and held a crystal. Great. Now that she's here, we can get Raven back. Timid looked scared as Robin approached her. She hid behind Naruto. Do you mind not scaring her? He asked the leader. Sorry, but we need the real Raven back, Robin said back. Naruto narrowed his eyes. This is Raven, she is as much a raven as the whole. Robin also narrowed his eyes before sighing. Sorry about that, it's been a long day. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. Nodding his head in acceptance of the apology, Naruto brought his hand up. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, I found Timid here wandering the streets. Robin, the Titan said as he introduced himself, shaking Naruto's hand, but you probably already knew that. These are the other Titans. Cyborg, Starfire, and Beast Boy. They each waved, with Starfire being more enthusiastic than she meant. And you've already met Raven. And I ask what happened here? I didn't think the Teen Titans were so unclean. Naruto said, trying to come up with the right word. When Raven split, one of her emotions stayed in the tower as we were looking for the others. This one was laziness, explained Beast Boy before he folded his arms with an annoyed look, and she ate everything in the fridge. Naruto noticed a large object in Starfire's hands. What's that? That's the prism that split Raven apart, Cyborg said. We don't know why, but we're guessing it's magical. Once Raven split, it broke into 5 crystals. We've already got laziness, rage, passion, and happiness, he said with a sad sigh. He'll miss that particular emotion. Robin held the crystal. We just need to tap Timid with this, and we should be able to put them all together again hopefully. That last part he muttered to himself as he knows they were just assuming this was how a magical crystal would work. Holding out his hand, Robin passed the crystal to Naruto who examined it. The blonde then turned and looked at Timid. It's your turn, he said, I promise nothing bad will happen. She trusted him easily, much more than she thought she should. She then looked sad again. What's wrong? Asked Naruto in concern. Once we're put back together, I won't see you again, Timid said sadly. Then to her surprise, Naruto pulled her into a hug. I'm your friend, as well as Raven's. We'll see each other again. Timid looked hopeful at that and nodded. She closed her eyes and felt the crystal touch her forehead. Naruto watched as the girl glowed and disappear into the crystal, which now glowed gray. He tossed it to Robin, who caught it with ease. Thanks, the leader said with a nod as he placed the crystal with the rest. They all watched as it glowed white and rose into the air. It flashed, forcing everyone to close their eyes, and, when they opened them again, there stood Raven, holding the now empty prism. I told you, you shouldn't mess around with this, she said with her usual monotone voice. But thanks for making me whole again, she finished with a slight smile. As the other Titans tried to figure out if she was being sincere or not, she went over to Naruto. Thank you for looking after Timid. Naruto shrugged, no problem. I liked her, although, I didn't think you would feel sorry for everything. I don't, Raven quickly replied, that's just how Timid is. They both walked out of the comm room and down a hall, stopping at a door with Raven's name on it. She smirked at him, by the way, I found your books. Oh, really? He said with a smile, what do you think of them? I've already finished the first book. I would have finished the second if it wasn't for everything that happened. Want me to sign them for you? He asked with a grin. Raven also smiled, knowing it was a joke. How about we talk some more tomorrow? I've got to go now anyway, still working on my next book. Raven opened a portal for him, allowing him to return to his apartment in an instant. If I get to see an early draft of your book, then I'll think about it, she replied. Naruto laughed as he walked out, saying his goodbye just as the portal closed. Raven stayed where she was for a second before walking into her room. She still had that second book to read, after all. Story start. So, where are you from exactly? Raven asked Naruto. Currently, the two were in a coffee shop that Raven frequented quite a lot as the baristas liked to give her free drinks. It was still a little early in the morning so there wasn't a lot of people about. Raising an eyebrow at the question as he wrote down a few notes for his latest book on a notebook, Naruto replied, I already told you. I used to live in Gotham City for a while before I moved here. Rolling her eyes, Raven said, yes, you told me you lived there for a while. I'm asking you, where did you grow up? Before you started moving around. Ah, Naruto sounded as he finally understood the question. In his mind, he recalled the idea he had to tell people that he grew up in a remote village in Japan. It was believable as his native language was coincidentally like Japanese. Remembering this reminded Naruto of the months he spent using clones to learn English. Not something he wanted to repeat as the headache it gave him was incredible. Shaking his head out of his thoughts, Naruto decided to tell the truth for once. Well? Asked Raven, getting impatient as Naruto stayed silent. On Hagakure, Naruto answered, getting a confused look from Raven. My home, he clarified, it's where I grew up. Raven stared at Naruto for a second, knowing that he was telling the truth. Konoha was a beautiful village, lying in the middle of a huge forest, with green as far as the eye can see. The name actually means the village hidden in the leaves. Seeing the sad look in his eyes and the fact he stopped writing things down as he described his home, Raven asked, "You miss it, don't you?" Hearing the question, the sad look he had disappeared as Naruto snorted, "Nope. Everyone there was an ass. I'm glad I'm away from there and I plan on keeping it that way." For some reason, Raven just knew he was still telling the truth but was still surprised at the sudden mood swing. "So, how's the book doing for you?" The book in question was the third installment of his series, True Confessions. Betrayal. So far Raven was halfway through the book and she only started it a few days ago, a day after the whole personality split incident. "It's good so far. I honestly wasn't expecting such a twist in the 7th chapter," Raven answered, remembering how tired she was when she began that chapter, and then she was wide awake as soon as she read the plot twist. "Well, the title is called Betrayal after all," Naruto said with a knowing tone. "Still, where do you even get these ideas?" Naruto's only answer was a shrug. He honestly didn't know where these ideas came from, they just came to him and he makes it all up as he writes. "So, your team's still annoying you?" "It's like they do everything they can to ruin my day," Raven answered after drinking her tea. Finishing her drink, Raven signaled the barista that she would like another cup. Almost immediately, they brought her another cup and then left again with Raven saying her thanks. "Any demonic changes happened to you lately?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. Smirking at the question, Naruto jokingly checked himself over and used a teaspoon to check his reflection. "I don't look any different so I don't think so." "Why? Sense a spike of that energy again?" Raven huffed, not finding the joke very funny. "No, I still don't sense anything. I wish you would just tell me what it was already." "I wish I could remember that night," Naruto said with a frown, "maybe I could be of more help if I did." "Please," Raven said with a slight scoff, "you just want to remember it so you can use it in your books." "Okay, first off. No, that isn't true. Second. I'm not a pervert like my godfather, who would have done that without hesitating," Naruto said, a little offended. "Although, you don't sound like you're against the idea." Raven's eyes widened as she began to sputter at the accusation, not expecting it at all. Naruto nearly fell out of his seat laughing when he saw Raven's face glow bright red. His laughing stopped suddenly when he fell on the floor without any warning. Groaning a little as he sat upright on the floor, Naruto looked at Raven's smirking face and then to his chair. Narrowing his eyes at the broken leg, he picked it up and showed it to Raven, who had an obviously fake surprised look on her face. "That chair must have faulty or something," she said, trying to hide her smirk behind her cup of tea. "Yeah," Naruto muttered with his own smirk, "or something." However, just as he stood up, there was a smash from a window. Raven and Naruto looked in the direction the noise came from and saw a shattered window. Looking down, they both spotted the object that was thrown through. Widening their eyes at the grenade that was thrown at them, Raven quickly used her magic to throw it to the other side of the room, just as Naruto grabbed her. He jumped towards the baristas and they all ducked behind the counter. A second later and the grenade exploded, destroying everything around it. Then as quickly as the explosion appeared, it disappeared, leaving burning wood and debris everywhere. Slowly raising his head above the surprisingly still-built counter, Naruto asked, "Who throws a grenade? Are you okay?" Raven asked the two baristas who nodded back. "What about you?" Raven began to ask as she turned to the blonde but saw that he was already outside. "Naruto," she finished with a sigh, wondering how stupid he could be if he runs to the person who threw the grenade. "Who threw that?" Naruto shouted to the empty street. Raven stood next to him, also eyeing the street but seeing no one. "I can't sense anyone," Raven muttered in suspicion. Naruto suddenly turned to the roof of the building on the opposite side of the street, then to the alley a few buildings down. He narrowed his eyes when he too realized he couldn't sense anyone either, but he knew there were a few of them. Spinning around, Naruto quickly caught a foot that was aimed for his head and swung the person to the middle of the street. Shaking his hand a little, Naruto said, "Got a strong kick there. Who are you?" The person in question was wearing a full black suit with metal plates on each limb and neck. On their mask was a simple orange circle. "There's no point in asking them that," Raven said with a scowl, "they're robots." "Well, that explains the kick. Literally felt like I got hit by a metal baseball bat," Naruto commented before noticing something. "That robot isn't alone, by the way." Raven looked and saw that Naruto was right as another 5 robots appeared from the alley in front of them. "You take the ones on the left?" Naruto asked while cracking his knuckles. Even though he wanted to keep a low profile and not to be noticed, he couldn't just let some robots get away with throwing a grenade at him and Raven, as well as the baristas. "I don't know if you can take them on," Raven admitted with a little worry. Naruto snorted a little. "You do remember that I fought Robin, right?" "The Robin you fought was possessed and was acting on instinct and muscle memory, more or less," Raven countered. "These robots belong to a man named Slade, a mercenary who can fight us for fun. He designed and built these robots for that purpose as well. If anything, this made Naruto's smirk a little bigger. He always liked a challenge back in his old life. As if they were tired of waiting, the robots ran at them both. Easily seeing the attack, Naruto blocked one of the robot's punch and then grabbed the robot's arm. Grunting a little, he spun around and swung the robot into its lookalike, knocking them both back. Raven, seeing the opportunity, used her powers and lifted a lampist. She tried wrapping it around the two robots, but they got away too quickly. Punching one in the face, Naruto ducked and flipped, kicking another in the chin before he punched it in the chest, knocking over a couple behind it. Another robot appeared behind him, and just as he turned to face it, a few pieces of debris covered in black energy appeared and knocked the robot away and down for the count. Nodding his thanks to Raven, Naruto stepped aside another strike from a robot before grabbing its head and slamming it into a wall next to them. He and Raven stood next to each other as they looked at the last four robots who each pulled out a weapon. Each took aim, and both Naruto and Raven were forced to dodge and jump about as the robots fired yellow beams at them. Jumping over one, Naruto caught its arm as it swung at him. Bending it at an odd angle, the robot accidentally fired the weapon at one of its accomplices. Bending the arm again, the weapon fired into the robot's own stomach just as Raven a car at the last two, slamming them into the far wall. Panting a little as everything calmed down, Naruto laughed a little. Well, glad that's over with. Was it not as easy as you thought it would be? Raven asked back, examining one of the robots. They were better than I thought, I'll admit that, he said as he rubbed his jaw. The last one I took out got a few hits in, and with a metal fist, it hurt. Raven pulled out a communicator and called her team, and Naruto looked closely at the robot he grappled with. He pulled off the mask to reveal a head full of wires and electronics. I'm not even going to attempt to try and understand this, he muttered to himself. Hearing a noise, Naruto turned to the two robots Raven took out with a car. He widened his eyes when he saw one of them begin to move and pull out a weird-looking gun. The robot looked at him before turning to Raven. No. Shouted Naruto as the robot fired a red blast of energy at her. But just before it did, Naruto managed to get in between and took the shot to the chest. Spinning around at the shout, Raven was shocked to see the robot aiming at her with an odd-looking weapon. Raven was about to use her magic when a knife appeared and stabbed the robot in the head, making it flop lifelessly. Turning to Naruto who was on his knees, she saw his arm outstretched, meaning he was the one that threw the knife. Deciding to ask about the weapon later, she checked him over. Seeing no injuries at all, she asked, "Are you okay?" She couldn't help but sound concerned. Patting himself on the chest to see if he was hurt, Naruto looked confused. "Yeah, I'm fine." "How am I fine?" He stood up with Raven's help, but she just looked equally confused. "I don't know. As far as I can tell you're fine," Raven said with a furrowed brow. Shaking her head a little, she said, "I let my team know what happened and they said that they were all attacked as well." "I guess it was smart to attack when you were all separated," Naruto admitted, "but in the end, they were still all beaten, so maybe we stopped that Slade guy's plan." Raven shook her head. "Not likely. Slade is the type of person that would think of every outcome and make sure it goes in his favor. Even though we managed to beat those robots, I can't help but feel like it was a part of his plan." "You should get back to your team so you guys can figure this out," Naruto suggested with Raven agreeing. Opening a portal, Raven was about to step through, she asked, "Well, my friends and I deal with Slade, what will you be doing?" Giving Raven one of his famous grins, Naruto answered, "I'm actually going to a museum exhibit tonight. I've heard they've got something interesting to reveal and they're throwing a gala to celebrate. If you've dealt with Slade by then, feel free to join me. And bring Starfire if you want. Oh, and dress nice." Raven gave a smile and nod before walking into the portal as it closed behind her, leaving Naruto alone with the robot bodies and the two baristas who watched from the sidelines. "Coffee machine still working?" One of the baristas glanced into the destroyed coffee shop, "Somehow, yeah. If you guys make me a cup of coffee then I'll be more than happy to help clean." Now past lunchtime, Naruto entered his apartment with a sigh. He was a bit dirty from helping clean the coffee shop after the whole fight. Now he was needing a shower. He walked through the living room before stopping with narrowed eyes. "I'll admit, I almost didn't realize you were there," he said, turning around with a kunai in his hand. He stared at the intruder in his apartment, not recognizing the man at all. But the suit he wore was similar to the robots he fought with earlier. A black suit with metal plates and a mask that covered the right side of his face completely while the left side was orange and only had a single eye hole. Honestly, Naruto was actually reminded of his old sensei Kakashi at this very moment. "I would be disappointed if you didn't know I was here," the man said. Even from the way he spoke and held himself, Naruto could tell that this man was not someone to underestimate. Making it look like he had relaxed his stance, Naruto still held the kunai and was ready in case the stranger attacked. "Are you this Slade I've heard so much about?" The man chuckled a little. That is one of my many names, yes, he answered. And you would be Naruto Uzumaki, a friend to a certain titan. Naruto stiffened a little at how the man knew him and his friendship with Raven, but he made sure to not show any sign of surprise. I have been watching you for a while now, ever since you caught my attention with the Puppet King. That puppet guy was working for you? No. I just like to keep tabs on everyone in the city, be them heroes or villains, Slade honestly answered. He had no affiliation with the Puppet King and couldn't care less if that villain was killed or not. I was watching the Puppet King and his attack on the Titans when I came across you. Should I be flattered? Naruto sarcastically asked, wishing that this guy would just get to the point already. Slade knew he was annoying Naruto and it amused him slightly. Ever since I saw you fight alongside Raven and Starfire, you have piqued my interest. Especially when you fought Robin and came out unscathed. That Robin was just a body, it wasn't really Robin I was fighting. Even so, you impressed me. And then you impressed me again when you fought against my robots. This time, Slade moved slightly to show he held the remote to the TV. Turning it on, Naruto was surprised to see footage of him and Raven fighting against the robots. The footage ended when it showed him getting shot by the odd-looking gun. That weapon was a test. If it worked on a Titan then it would work on them all. But then you took the blast for her. Getting angry at the thought of this man saying how Raven was just a test, Naruto decided to ask, what test exactly? The gun did nothing to me. It did at first. You see, the weapon infects you with nanoscopic probes which I can control, Slade explained as he produced a tablet showing a diagram of Naruto and how the probes were coursing through his body. Naruto didn't show it, but he felt violated all of a sudden. With these probes, I could have killed you with a press of a button. This caught Naruto's undivided attention, could have. Now Slade sounded a little annoyed as he spoke. This diagram was made a minute after you were shot. This one, Slade said, swiping across the tablet to show another diagram of Naruto, was made a half-hour later. Somehow, there isn't a single trace of my probes anywhere. Is that Kyuubi's doing? Naruto thought, wondering if the Kyuubi's chakra was still healing him after all this time. Is that why you're here? To find out why I don't have your probe things anymore. At this moment I couldn't care less how you did it, but I am curious about it, admitted Slade. Now his single eye took on a look that Naruto did not like. I am here for a different reason. You are going to help me break the Titans. For a whole minute, Naruto just stared at the masked man with narrowed eyes. Neither men said anything as they stared at each other. That is until Naruto began to laugh, almost hysterically. Why you think I'm going to help you? Naruto gasped out. He calmed down but still held a smile, even if it wasn't a real one. What makes you think I would? Like you said, your probes don't work on me so you can't control me at all. Not you, no, Slade said as the TV suddenly changed to a different video, showing each of the Titans on a boat in front of a large device. The device looked like it malfunctioned before a large gun, similar to the one that shot Naruto, appeared behind the Titans and shot each of them before they could do anything. Eyes widened at this, Naruto finally realized what Slade meant. Roaring in anger, Naruto seemed to appear in front of Slade from across the room. He grabbed Slade's head and slammed him into the wall. The mask Slade wore cracked lightly due to the pressure Naruto was creating. In his free hand, Naruto angrily made a ball of energy and held it at Slade's chest. With his eyes flashing red before they turned back to blue, Naruto shouted, "Release them. Release them now." Interesting, muttered Slade as he saw Naruto's eyes change color. He then stared at the ball of energy with interest. If you kill me or harm me in any way, then one of my robots will activate the probes and kill each and every Titan, including your friend Raven. Snarling, Naruto increased the pressure on the mask, with pieces of it falling to the ground. The Rasengan he held lightly touched Slade's chest, tearing apart the armor like it was nothing. Without warning, he released Slade and dissipated the Rasengan. If you hurt her, then I will kill you, Naruto threatened, his voice turning deep and evil as his eyes flashed red again. Slade looked at the blonde and actually believed he could do it. The Titans were heroes and would never kill, but this person didn't care about any of that, which made him all the more dangerous. You wouldn't be the first to give me that threat, Slade commented before walking towards the door. Now, follow me. Wordlessly, Naruto followed the man and glared at him the entire time. Later that night, Raven appeared in front of Naruto's door with Starfire and Robin by her side. All three of them were dressed differently than they usually do. Raven was wearing a black dress that ended at her knees, black high heels, and a dark blue open top over the dress. It was clear she wasn't very comfortable in it as she kept fidgeting. Robin just wore a standard tuxedo while also still wearing his mask. Finally, Starfire wore a light purple dress and long white sleeves. Before she knocked on Naruto's door, Raven looked at Robin, "Remind me why you're here again." "These type of events are usually targeted for robberies," he said with a shrug, but a glare from Raven made him sweat a little. Starfire told me that you were both going to a gala tonight and she asked if I wanted to join. Shooting a quick glare at Starfire, Raven mentioned, I thought you would be concentrating on finding Slade. I would rather be, but Starfire insisted that I go with her. Plus, I've got both Cyborg and Beast Boy doing that for me, Robin said. He hated the fact that while he was out trying to have a good time, Slade was somewhere in the city planning something again. I just wanted friend Robin to enjoy this gallery of art with us, Starfire said to Raven, giving the violet-haired girl a puppy dog look. Shaking her head, Raven just sighed. While she knows Robin has met Naruto before, she would still rather they keep minimum contact with each other. It was honestly bad enough that Starfire already knew about Naruto and that he was the one that helped with the Puppet King. Raven was just thankful that Starfire hasn't said anything about that yet. With those thoughts in mind, Raven raised her hand and knocked on the door. She waited, but no one answered, so she knocked again with the same result. Is he not here? Asked Starfire. So he invites us to the gala and has already left? Robin asked, not sounding impressed. He was told that Raven had run into Naruto in the city and he had invited her and the team to the gala. He knew that the gala starts in a half hour, so maybe Naruto was already there. Raven just looked at the door, knowing that something wasn't right. Maybe he was just running late and is expecting us to meet him there, Raven suggested. All of their communicators went off at the same time, making Raven jump a little as she wasn't expecting it. Robin opened his and scowled. Looks like there's a robbery in a nearby lab. Beast Boy and Cyborg are already heading there, so let's go, he said as he pulled off his tux's shirt to reveal his normal outfit. He then took off down the hall and towards the exit, with the girls following after, not caring to change their clothes as they knew they had no time. Naruto scowled even more than he usually was. He was currently in a lab and staring at a thermal blaster which Slade wanted him to steal. What didn't help was that Slade liked to remind him that if he didn't do as ordered, the Titans would die at a push of a button. What also didn't help was what he was wearing. Slade just so happened to make him a uniform. The outfit was mostly black from head to toe with dark orange lines. While his right shoulder was the same color as the suit, his left shoulder was covered in a dark orange mesh with his left arm in a white sleeve. He was also wearing a mask that looked almost identical to Slade's, except it was fabric and not armored, and he had both eye holes. While he hated the man, Naruto couldn't deny that Slade had an okay sense of fashion, as he thought about keeping the suit once this was all over. Looking ahead, Naruto could see the thermal blaster in a highly secure safe. Even from just looking at it, he knew that alarms would go off once it opens no matter what he'd do. Wanting to get this over with, Naruto reached into a pouch and pulled out a disc. Throwing it towards the safe, the disc shifted and became a very sharp S that stabbed into the door. Beeping could be heard before the disc suddenly exploded, taking the safe doors with it. Taking hold of the thermal blaster, Naruto could easily hear the many footsteps of multiple guards running towards his location. Stowing the weapon in another pouch, Naruto smashed through the closest window and ran out onto the balcony. Jumping into the scaffolding above, he watched as the guards ran outside and then ran back inside when they didn't see anyone. Landing back on the ground, Naruto turned around but stopped when he saw Cyborg, Beast Boy, and Starfire standing ahead and looking ready to fight him. Hearing footsteps behind him, Naruto took a deep breath and turned his head, seeing both Robin and Raven blocking his exit. Seeing how well-dressed Raven was, Naruto blushed but couldn't help but groan. He had forgotten all about the gala which would have started by now. Another reason he was going to beat the crap out of Slade when he got the chance. You're not Slade, Robin stated with narrowed eyes, wondering if this was another robot or if it was somebody new. Naruto wanted nothing more than to explain what was happening, but knew the consequences if he did. What will you do now? Slade's voice appeared in an earpiece. Naruto wore. Will you fight them? Sorry, but I've got to go, Naruto said, the suit changing his voice slightly as to not be recognized. With that said, he suddenly jumped off the side, shocking all of the Titans there. They all ran to the edge and saw Naruto, somehow, running down the side of the building. After him. Robin said as he and Cyborg ran towards the stairs. The others would fight above while he and Cyborg would meet them at the bottom. Beast Boy jumped off the balcony and turned into a pterodactyl as Raven and Starfire simply flew after. Screeching, Beast Boy raised his talons and was just about to catch Naruto when the masked man suddenly hugged the wall, making Beast Boy fly past. Seeing an opportunity, Naruto jumped off the wall and landed on Beast Boy's wing. Using his chakra, Naruto was able to stay on the wing, even as Beast Boy did everything he could to knock him off. Seeing that she couldn't use her starbolts in case she hit Beast Boy, Starfire flew down and tried punching Naruto, but he easily dodged to the side. She swung again, but Naruto grabbed her fist and swung her around into Beast Boy. The impact knocked them away as Naruto jumped back to the wall of the lab. Once again, he moved away as Raven had used her magic to throw objects at him. Naruto hesitated and it cost him as Raven managed to throw a dumpster nearby at him. It hit him hard, disorientating him slightly, but he quickly recovered. Pulling out a disc, Naruto threw it and it exploded in a flash of light in Raven's eyes, blinding her for a moment. Naruto took this chance and ran past her, not able to bring himself to fight her. However, Naruto widened his eyes when he saw a blue beam heading right for him, courtesy of Cyborg. Jumping over it, Naruto cursed when he turned and saw the attack hit Raven in the back and into the wall. She began to fall, and Naruto could see she was unconscious. "Let her fall," warned Slade, but Naruto ignored him as he suddenly jumped towards Raven and grabbed her in midair. He had no way of getting back to the wall, and he was falling too fast to properly correct himself. Somehow managing to twist in the air, Naruto turned and made sure the impact with the ground would hit his back and not Raven. Once he hit the ground, Naruto shouted in pain. He was thankful that he managed to land in a nearby alley and that it gave him a spare few seconds away from the rest of the Titans. He wasn't paying attention when Raven gained consciousness again, groaning at the headache she managed to gain. Seeing who she was on, Raven was quick to jump back and encase the man in her magic, effectively trapping him. "Well, this is an odd thank you," Naruto commented. Raven's magic had a hold on each of his limbs, so he couldn't even move. "Who are you?" she asked with narrowed eyes. "And why would I thank you?" "For saving you?" Naruto said as if it was obvious. "Look, I don't have time for this, so just let me go." Raven didn't say anything as she saw her team appear and surround the man once again. "Who are you?" Robin said, unintentionally repeating Raven's question. "If you don't do something then I will," Slade said in the earpiece, thumbing the button slightly. Raven stepped forward and raised a hand, intending to take off Naruto's mask. Now desperate to get away before he was found out, Naruto concentrated before shouting. As he shouted, he released some of the Kyuubi's chakra, which quickly destroyed Raven's magic around him, before disappearing like it was never there. Now that he was able to do, Naruto was quick to use a substitution jutsu with a nearby bin, confusing everyone there. "Find him!" shouted Robin, angry that their lead on Slade was gone. The entire team scattered, but Raven stayed where she was, staring at the spot Naruto was at in shock. "No," she whispered with wide eyes and slight fear. Sinking into the ground, Raven quickly appeared in front of Naruto's door once again. She pounded on the door, not wanting to believe what she saw. "Naruto!" she shouted, "Naruto, please answer the door." A light down the hallway exploded due to the emotions Raven was feeling. Still, no one answered and Raven teleported her way into the apartment. Because it was dark out right now, the room she was in was cast in shadows thanks to the lamppost outside. Turning on the light, Raven saw an overturned chair and spider web cracks on the wall next to it. There was a struggle here, but Raven didn't know who Naruto was struggling with or who it was that struggled with Naruto. Feeling that she was losing control of her emotions, Raven sat down on the couch and hugged herself. "Azrath Metrian Zinthos," she whispered before repeating herself again and again. Once she had control, albeit barely, Raven stood and took a shaky breath. "If that really is you, Naruto," Raven thought as she slowly sunk into the floor, "then you'd better have a good reason for this." Making his way into the hideout, Naruto ripped off his mask and stormed his way towards Slade and his throne, throwing the thermal blaster at him. Naruto said, "There, you have what you want." Hatching the device with ease, Slade examined it before saying, "Excellent work. You would make a fine apprentice, perhaps even better than Robin could ever be." "This deal won't save you forever," Naruto said. "Sooner or later, your plans will fail and I'll be there to kill you." Slade only laughed at the threat. Monitors appeared next to Naruto, catching his attention. "The Titans still have no idea that my chromatin detonator was more than a decoy. Now that my probes are inside their bodies, they could remain undetected for years, decades even." The footage showed each of the Titans getting shot and then the diagrams of the probes attaching themselves to their blood cells. "Unless, of course, you disobey me and I decide to destroy them all with a push of a button." The next scene to show was when Naruto saved Raven from her fall. Naruto scowled in understanding. If he tried to save any of them, then they would all die. "Am I going to steal something else now?" Naruto demanded, knowing this wasn't over. "Your next target is in Wayne Enterprises," Slade said as he went over to a workbench and made a few adjustments to the thermal blaster. Walking back over to Naruto, he attached the blaster to his wrist and stepped back. Naruto examined it and flexed his wrist. The weapon itself was attached to a brace and was below his palm. Once he flexed his wrist, the weapon fired, destroying one of the screens next to him. "I'll send you the details of what I want when you get there." Still holding his scowl, Naruto nodded and put on the mask before leaving, making sure to slam the door off its hinges on his way out. Slade just watched him leave before turning back to his monitor. He examined each Titan's biological scan and made sure to note of anything interesting. Looking at a particular Titan, his eye widened before he began to laugh evilly. Back at the Titan's tower, Raven appeared and saw each member of the team were working on figuring out Slade's motive and whoever this new person was. Starfire was the first to notice Raven as she floated over to the girl. "Friend Raven. Is everything okay?" Raven just glanced at Starfire and shook her head lightly before speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Robin, can I speak to you for a moment?" she asked with seriousness. Robin was wanting to say that he was too busy, but hearing how serious she was he walked over to her. "Raven, what's wrong?" he asked. Bringing him over to the other side of the room so that no one else would hear yet she said, "I think I know who the person working for Slade is." Robin's eyes widened before he demanded, "Who is it?" "Before I say who it is, I'm not entirely sure he's actually working for Slade, I think he's being blackmailed somehow," Raven explained, putting Robin in deep thought. "Who is it?" Robin still demanded. Raven hesitated before finally saying, "I think it's Naruto. I can't explain how I know, I just do." Robin spun around and was about to run to the computer before Raven grabbed his arm. "Robin, if it really is Naruto then I don't think he's doing this willingly." Robin seemed to think about it before carefully asking, "Do you trust him?" Raven was surprised by the question, but she already knew the answer. Nodding, she said, "Yes," without her voice wavering in the slightest, showing she really did trust Naruto. Sighing at how this might get complicated, Robin then said, "Okay. If you trust him, then I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Do you know how he's being blackmailed at all?" Raven shook her head. "Alright. Let's check out his place, maybe we'll find something there." "I was just there," Raven said, getting a surprised look from Robin. "What?" "I wanted to make sure it was Naruto. Anyway, when I got inside there was a chair overturned and cracks in the wall, like someone was thrown against it." "Was that all?" Robin asked with Raven nodding. "That's not much to go on. Take me there anyway, there might be something you missed." Raven nodded and readied a portal, while Robin turned back to the team, "We'll be back. We're just checking out a lead and be back soon." Arriving inside Naruto's apartment, Robin glanced around and raised an eyebrow at how plain everything was. He easily saw the chair and wall and checked them over. The chair told him nothing and he examined the wall, accidentally kicking something on the floor. Looking down, he saw pieces of metal that didn't fit with anything in the apartment. Picking one up, he looked at it closely and said, "I know this. It's from Slade's mask." "So that means Naruto had managed to pin Slade to the wall somehow," Raven said. "That means Naruto fought back." Before Robin could say anything, his communicator went off. Answering it, Robin said, "Cyborg, have you found anything?" "Maybe." There was silent alarm tripped at Wayne Enterprises, might be connected to Slade, Cyborg answered. "Best to check it out even if it's nothing." "We'll meet you there," Robin said before hanging up. Looking at Raven, he asked, "Do you know where Wayne Enterprises is?" Raven nodded and made a portal that let them sink into the ground. Breaking open a vent, Naruto jumped down into a large room before glancing around to make sure no one was around. Seeing that he was alone, he walked over to the only device in the room that was just oddly floating under a spotlight. "Who the hell designed these places?" Naruto muttered to himself as he grabbed the device. "Naruto," said Raven's voice, making Naruto freeze with his hand on the device. He craned his neck and saw all of the titans at the entrance. Sighing, Naruto pulled off the mask, making everyone but Raven and Robin gasp at who it was. He looked at them and could see the hurt and confusion in Raven's eyes. He hated himself for causing that look. "What gave it away?" he asked, pocketing the device away. "That energy you used," Raven answered. "I recognized it from before." Not making a comment on that, Naruto just said, "You guys aren't going to let me walk out of here, are you?" "What do you think?" asked Beast Boy as he changed into a gorilla and roared. Naruto glanced at the vent above them. It would be easy to just evade all of them and leave without hurting any of them. As if hearing his thoughts, Slade's voice appeared, "Do not run. Fight them now," he ordered. "I've got the device," Naruto said quietly, with none of the titans being able to hear him, "why can't I just leave?" "Fight them, or I'll end them," Slade shouted. Scowling, Naruto threw away the mask in his hand and ran at the titans. Beast Boy roared and jumped at the blonde, aiming to grab him and end the fight. Naruto caught the gorilla's fist and proved himself stronger as he swung Beast Boy around and into a wall. Starfire flew at him and fired a few starbolts at his feet. "Please friend Naruto, why are you doing this?" she begged to know. "Sorry Star," Naruto said, "this is something I just have to do." Seeing that he was refusing to back down, Starfire's eyes glowed green as she flew down. Landing on the ground, she threw a fist but was surprised when Naruto caught it with ease. Kneeing her in the stomach, Naruto raised his fists and slammed them into her back, knocking her to the ground. Robin appeared with his bow staff, managed to hit Naruto in the head with it. "Is Slade blackmailing you?" Robin shouted, angry at seeing Starfire get hurt. Naruto said nothing as he rubbed his head a little. He then pulled out two objects that extended into two Eskrima sticks. He twirled them around before running at Robin. Robin managed to block one, but wasn't quick enough to avoid the one aimed at his feet. Spinning around as he knocked Robin off his feet, Naruto kicked him hard enough to cause the boy wonder to roll across the floor. Seeing Cyborg aiming his arm at him, Naruto threw a stick and lodged it into Cyborg's weapon. "What?" gasped out Cyborg as he looked at his arm, only to see the stick suddenly glow. "Crap." he shouted as it exploded, thankfully not taking his arm with it. Walking over, Naruto placed a disc on his chest that suddenly electrified him into unconsciousness. Knowing there was only one person left, Naruto turned to see Raven staring at him. "I never wanted to do this," he admitted. "Then please stop," she begged. "I can't," Naruto said, sounding as though he was fighting himself. Raising his arm, he aimed the thermal detonator and prepared to fire. It glowed red before the energy disappeared. "I just can't," he said as he fell to his knees, punching the ground. "Then I will," Slade's voice said. Naruto widened his eyes and looked towards Raven. She looked confused for a second before suddenly feeling pain everywhere. It felt like her entire being was being stabbed, electrocuted, and burned all at the same time. Unable to contain it, she screamed in agony as she too fell to her knees. Naruto ran to her side, holding her hand. He could see the same thing happening to the rest of the Titans as they all screamed and shouted. "Stop this!" Naruto shouted and begged. "Please. The only way for it to stop is if you attack her." Slade shouted as he slammed his fist down onto his chair. Tears formed in Naruto's eyes, but his eyes widened again when he felt a hand on his cheek. Looking, he saw Raven looking at him with her face crunched up in pain. "It's okay. Just do it," she said through gritted teeth, having barely managed to overhear Slade through Naruto's earpiece. "Attack me." Closing his eyes and nodded, Naruto stood and aimed the thermal blaster. He saw Raven nod her head. Shouting, he fired and hit Raven in the chest, knocking her unconscious. Almost immediately, everyone stopped screaming as the pain faded away. Looking around, Naruto saw that everyone else was unconscious due to the immense pain they felt. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Raven before running away. He had a look of pure rage as his eyes flashed and stayed red. "I'm ending this now," Naruto thought as he vanished in a burst of speed, knowing exactly where to go. A few minutes later and the Titans began to wake up, one by one. "What the hell happened?" groaned Beast Boy as he rubbed his head. "Naruto handed our asses to us," replied Cyborg, "that's what happened." "It's not his fault," Raven said, catching everyone's attention. "He didn't have a choice." "What do you mean he didn't have a choice?" shouted Beast Boy. "He could have just beat us and walked away." "No, instead he somehow tortured us all." "That wasn't him." Raven shouted back, surprising everyone. "Naruto refused to attack me, and then the pain started. I think it was Slade that did that, not Naruto." Cyborg looked at his arm before saying, "My scanners aren't picking anything up, but if we head back to the tower, then I should be able to figure out what happened." Slade stared at the screen in front of him, watching Naruto defeat the Titans. He frowned at how he refused to hurt Raven and then at how he apologized before leaving her. He glanced down at the smaller screen in front of him, trying to formulate a plan in his head before he heard footsteps behind him. "You did well. But if I see you hesitate like that again, then I'll kill them all," Slade said as he turned and looked at his apprentice. "Not if I kill you first," Naruto said as he suddenly punched Slade in the face, managing to punch the man right through his own chair and into the screens behind him. "You did something that no one has done in years, not since I left my home." Rubbing his jaw, Slade stood and glared at Naruto. "And what would that be?" he asked. "You pissed me off." Naruto shouted, feeling Kyuubi's chakra giving him power. His features changed, his teeth turned into fangs, his nails turned into claws, his whisker marks deepened, and he gained a feral look. If it was anyone else, they would be terrified, but Slade slowly stood and pulled out a bow staff. In the Titan's comm room, Beast Boy was covered in wires as Cyborg typed into a computer. "I found something," he said as a picture of Beast Boy's blood cells appeared on the screen. "The enhanced sensors are picking up radio interference on an anoscopic scale." Everyone gasped when they saw small devices latch onto every blood cell in sight. Looking closely enough, they could all make out the familiar S symbol on each device. "Those things are inside me," shouted Beast Boy, looking disgusted. "They're inside all of us. Billions of them. That's how Slade did what he did to us," Cyborg said. Robin spoke up, "If that's true then Slade could destroy us at any moment." "Unless Naruto does what he says," Raven said. She felt relieved knowing that he was innocent and was forced to do all of this. Sensing something, Raven turned towards the window and looked out. "I think I sense Naruto," Raven said, "I know where they are." Panting slightly in exhaustion, Slade glared at Naruto from across the room. His armor was covered in deep scratch marks, and his mask was cracked once again. As beat up as he was, Slade could see that Naruto didn't have a single injury on him, but could see that he was getting tired. "You won't last much longer," Slade said, "when this power of yours runs out, I'll break you and force you to watch as I kill each of the Titans," ending with Raven. Naruto roared and lunged for Slade, aiming a swipe for his midsection. Slade stepped back and avoided the attack, but the force of it was still enough to make him skid back a few feet. But Naruto didn't stop as he used the momentum from his swing to spin and heel kick Slade, with Slade only just blocking it. He gasped out in pain when he felt bones in his arms ache from the impact. Seeing that Naruto was close enough, Slade pulled out a knife and slashed Naruto from his shoulder down to his waist. Naruto shouted out and jumped back as he held his wound. Looking down, he could see his blood seeping from between his fingers, and he could also see that the wound was already closing. Interesting, Slade said as he saw Naruto's healing abilities. I underestimated you, that was my mistake. But you attacking me, that was yours, he finished as he showed Naruto the button to activate the probes. Before he could press the button, his hand was encased in black energy. Looking, he saw the Titans had arrived and were glaring at him from behind Naruto. You're finished, Slade, Robin said with a glare. A pleasure to see you again, Robin, Slade said, sounding calm despite his situation. Unfortunately that won't be happening today. Another time, perhaps. Pulling out a disc, he threw it at the group as it exploded and created a smokescreen. Raven lost her concentration and released Slade's hand, who pressed the button. Hearing a noise, Naruto looked and saw a machine activate at the same time, just as everyone began to scream. Just like before, the pain appeared in all of the Titans. Naruto saw this and roared again as his anger grew. He appeared in front of Slade and grabbed the man by his throat, lifting him up with one hand. Slamming him down, the ground cracking under the pressure, Naruto grabbed the man's arm and threw him to the side and into the machine controlling the probes. Slade shouted out as the machine infected him with probes, which immediately began to destroy him from the inside. The man couldn't even move to destroy the remote to save himself. Naruto stood in front of him and ready to Rasengan. It glowed red just like his eyes. Now die. He shouted, slamming the Rasengan into Slade. The machine exploded, causing a chain reaction as other machines began to self-destruct. Naruto was thrown back, but he landed and saw that the probes have stopped working. Turning back to normal, he ran to Raven and shouted, we need to get out of here. Raven nodded enchanted, Azareth Metrian Zinthos. A large bird made of her magic appeared from the floor and protected them, just as another piece of machinery exploded next to them. The bird enveloped them all and sunk into the ground as another explosion destroyed everything. And that should be the last of those probes, Cyborg said as Beast Boy unhooked himself from a machine and began to dance like there was a party. Naruto sat on the couch next to Raven, Robin, and Starfire. I'm glad that's over with, he said as he stretched with the others agreeing. Is Slade really gone? Asked Starfire, her voice sounding a little scared. Robin shrugged. I'm not sure. Once that place is secure, we'll check it out, Robin suggested, wanting to know himself. He then glanced at Naruto and reminded himself that he needed to talk to the blonde about everything that happened. He would do it now, but everyone was relaxing and celebrating, knowing they had just beaten Slade. But Beast Boy jumping around, Cyborg felt that the celebration needed something. Now's the perfect time for an all-you-can-eat. Freeform, continued Beast Boy, knowing exactly what Cyborg was talking about. Breakfast explosion. They both shouted with grins as they ran to the kitchen. Leaning over to Raven, he asked, can I talk to you for a minute? She looked confused but nodded nonetheless. Standing up, she led him out of the comm room and towards her room. He was surprised when she actually invited him in. Before he stepped inside, he gave her a questioning look to see if he really was allowed. Are you wanting to talk in private? Naruto nodded, then this is the most private place in this whole tower. Stepping inside, Naruto glanced around Raven's room and laughed a little as he saw piles of books and candles sitting on top of them. Her entire room was dark in both lighting and decoration. You really are a goth, aren't you? He asked her. Raven never liked that word. So she liked dark things, who cares? Going over to her bed, she sat on the edge with Naruto joining her. What is it you wanted to talk about? She asked. After everything that happened today, it made me realize something, Naruto began, surprising Raven at how serious he was. I didn't want to tell you my past because I just wanted to forget about it and live my new life here. But with what happened, I realized I was just running away from my problems. What do you mean? Raven asked. Turning to look her in the eyes, Naruto said, I'm going to tell you everything. Story start. So, let me get this straight, Raven said, having just listened to Naruto tell her about where he came from. Like me, you are from another dimension where almost everyone can use chakra and then use it to do practically anything from walking on water to raising the dead. Naruto nodded to confirm she had his story right so far. Your world also has shinobi, which is the main military system, and you were a low-level shinobi, a genin. Genin, but yes, Naruto corrected with another nod. And that's about the gist of it. Raven continued, you told me a lot about your world, but you didn't really tell me anything about your life, and you didn't tell me how you managed to cross dimensions. Did you use one of your techniques or something? Like how I use portals to travel. I told you about how the shinobi system works and how I was placed on a team with 2 others to form Team 7. My teammates were Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha, both were top of the class while I was at the bottom. We were placed with Kakashi Haddock, who mostly tried to teach us teamwork. Naruto laughed a little, our teamwork was terrible. Sasuke always did everything himself, Sakura did nothing but follow Sasuke, and all I did was try to show off to Sakura. Did you have a crush on her? Raven asked without really thinking. Naruto gave her an amused look as she looked away with a slight blush of embarrassment. It just sounded like it, that's all. I did for a little while, Naruto admitted. But after our first official mission outside the village, I realized she never really cared about me. Sasuke and I got hurt, and while we were resting in our client's house, Sakura tended to Sasuke while ignoring me completely. A thoughtful look appeared on Naruto's face. Now that I think about, I wasn't as injured as Sasuke was. He could barely move after having a couple of dozen needles stab him and a bunch of pressure points. I was just tired from using too much chakra. Raven coughed a little. I think you're getting off topic a little. Blinking when he realized she was right, Naruto grinned a little. Oh, sorry. Anyway, during our first mission, Sasuke unlocked a special ability that only people in his family can acquire, the Sharingan. At this point, Naruto's smile faltered. Sasuke was always looking for power, he was desperate for it. When he got his Sharingan, it was like his obsession got even worse. And then during an exam that would have allowed us to become Chunin, we were ambushed by a man named Orochimaru. From the way you said his name, I'd hazard a guess and say you don't like him, Raven said, having heard the venom in Naruto's voice. Snorting, Naruto nodded like what Raven said was obvious. That's an incredible understatement. The man's a sick freak that experiments on children for fun. He even kills anyone if he knows he has no use for them anymore. And also that he could obtain immortality. Which leads me to why he ambushed us in the middle of the exam. We did everything we could to fight him, but we were badly outclassed. It turns out that Orochimaru was after Sasuke the entire time, just so he could give him the cursed mark. Cursed mark? I don't really know much about it. All I know is that increases chakra levels, strength, speed, all that sort of stuff. It also poisons the person's mind every time the person uses it. When Sasuke used it, he became addicted to it and began to believe that Orochimaru was the only person that would give him the power he needed. It didn't take long until Sasuke decided to defect and run away from the village. When we found out, myself and 4 others were tasked with bringing him back. Hearing him go quiet, Raven grew concerned and asked, "Are you alright?" Nodding, Naruto said, "Yeah, I'm fine." One by one my team stayed back to hold off an enemy while I went ahead. I eventually found Sasuke and tried to convince him to come back. But in the end, he was far too gone and we fought. The fight was bad. We destroyed a lot of the valley we were in, using every jutsu we knew just to stop each other. But in the end, it wasn't enough, so I put all of my chakra into my last attack with Sasuke doing the same. I'm not sure what happened, really. When he slammed the attacks into each other, everything went white. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in one of Gotham City's hospital, not able to understand what anyone was saying. "So you don't really know how you got here?" asked Raven in surprise. "I have a few ideas about how it happened, but I'll probably never know," Naruto said with a shrug, not really caring. He had tried to figure it out years ago and even tried to attempt it, but never could. "It sounded as though your last attack and Sasuke's were so powerful that it might have torn open a rift in your world to this one. If that's true, then you're lucky you didn't die because that amount of power would have torn your body apart." Naruto gave a small laugh. "You have no idea," he said before pulling his collar down to reveal the scar Raven saw when they first met. "This was given to me by Sasuke during our final attack. That plus all my other wounds, I shouldn't have survived crossing dimensions. But I was covered in demonic energy, as you like to call it, and that only just protected me." "What about that energy? What is it exactly?" Raven asked. The more Naruto told her of his past, the more she wanted to know, and that energy was what she wanted to know about the most. Just like any other time she mentioned that particular energy, she could see Naruto visibly hesitate. It was obvious it was difficult for him to talk about, but she was starting to get desperate. Plus he did say he would tell her everything, and she was hoping he would keep his promise. After a few seconds, Naruto sighs as he knows he should just tell her and stop hesitating. "That energy isn't demonic in any way, it's just chakra. Very very potent chakra, but chakra nonetheless. It's chakra from a being called a tailed beast, which in my world, there are 9 of. Each is more powerful than the last, with the strongest having 9 tails. I hold the strongest, the 9-tailed fox, Kyuubi," he said, hesitating at revealing his most dangerous secret. He knew it was ridiculous to be worried about it in this world, but it was something he feared ever since he first learned about it. "How do you have the Kyuubi?" Raven asked, unconsciously feeling relieved at the thought of Naruto not using demonic energy. Her eyes widened as she gained a small blush, watching as Naruto lifted his top to reveal his stomach and a six-pack, which Raven had a hard time looking away from. "What are you doing?" she shouted, managing to look away from his body. Laughing at her reaction, Naruto just channeled his chakra, making familiar black markings appear on his stomach. "This seal, which was placed on me on the day of my birth, imprisons the Kyuubi within me. It cannot escape no matter what, and it gives me the ability to draw on its power. But I can only draw a little at a time because I can't control it." Raven didn't even bother trying to understand the seal. If he didn't just explain to her what it was, she would have honestly just assumed it was a tattoo. Taking a quick glance at Naruto's face, she could see that he looked worried. That look confused her a little until she realized it. "Did you think I would hate you for this? For as long as I could remember, almost the entire village hated me, and I didn't know why. They would call me monster and demon, throw stones at me, hell I've even had mobs chase and beat me a couple of times a month. But they never gave me a real reason why they hated me," Naruto said to a shocked and disgusted Raven. "I finally learned that they all hated me because I contained the Kyuubi. I guess I was scared that if anyone learned my secret, then they would hate me no matter what." He looked away, feeling even more worried about what Raven's reaction would be. Then, to Naruto's surprise, he felt Raven lightly touch his arm. Looking at her with wide eyes, he saw the girl giving him a gentle smile with a look of understanding. "I don't hate you, Naruto. You're my friend, as well as Starfire's and the others." He didn't know why exactly, but those words made Naruto happy. Grinning, he suddenly pulled Raven into a hug. "Thank you, Raven." Not used to giving hugs, Raven awkwardly put her arms around Naruto and patted his back a little. "Rachel," she said as he pulled away, with Naruto giving her a confused look. "My real name is Rachel Roth." A few days later, afternoon. "So, remind me again what the plan is?" asked Cyborg into his communicator as he carefully moved a large piece of debris. The only reason that no one has been to Slade's hideout since the explosion was because the building was still classed as dangerous. Thankfully it has been a few days so the worst was over and the cleanup crew were scheduled to take care of everything tomorrow. Robin had sent Cyborg to get any evidence he could find. He heard a sigh before hearing Robin reply, "You are to go to Slade's hideout and see if Naruto really did kill him or not. And while you're there, you are to try and see if you can salvage anything of use. Understand?" Rolling his eyes, even though Robin couldn't see it, Cyborg said, "Yeah, that I understand. What I don't understand is what you're doing." "It's simple. I'm trying to gather information on Naruto. After what happened the other night, I want answers." "And by doing that you're following him around?" Cyborg questioned. At first, Robin didn't answer before finally answering with, "It's a legitimate method of gathering information. It's called being a stalker and no one likes that," Cyborg said as he opened a door, while Robin was stuttering and making excuses for himself. "Okay, I'm finally in the hideout. Just from looking around I can tell I'm not going to get much. Can you see where the fight ended?" Walking over, Cyborg looked around before seeing some destroyed machinery on the side of the room. It looked different from anything else as it looked damaged from an outside source. "Found where it happened and Slade's body isn't here. I don't know if I should be relieved or terrified." Robin cursed a little at hearing this before saying, "I should have figured he'd somehow survive that." "At least Naruto isn't a murderer," Cyborg said with relief. "Still doesn't excuse the fact that he tried to kill Slade. There's also the fact that he didn't seem affected by killing Slade like he was used to it or something." As he checked over the computer by Slade's chair, Cyborg broke open a panel and grinned. "Booyah. The hard drive is still intact," he said as he carefully unhooked it, carefully checking over the small amount of damage on the casing. "I'm going to take this back to the tower. It might be encrypted or it might be a trap with a virus. Either way, I have the perfect equipment for this at the tower. Alright, let me know if you decrypt it. I'll keep on Naruto until what?" "Arg," Robin began to say before he suddenly shouted. Immediately worried, Cyborg shouted Robin. "Robin, what is happening?" But Robin, a few seconds earlier. "Still doesn't excuse the fact that he tried to kill Slade," Robin said into his earpiece as watched Naruto in his apartment from the roof across the street. So far, the blonde has done nothing other than fixing his wall and cleaning up the mess that was made when he first attacked Slade. There's also the fact that he didn't seem affected by killing Slade like he was used to it or something. Using a pair of binoculars, Robin kept a close eye on Naruto as he walked out of his kitchen with a drink and sat down in front of his laptop. From what Robin could tell when he searched for any information on Naruto, the man was an author to a popular book series called True Confessions, a series he's never had any particular interest in, but he has seen Raven reading his books from time to time. "Booyah!" Cyborg suddenly shouted, making Robin jump as he wasn't expecting the sudden outburst. He sighed in relief when he saw that Naruto hadn't noticed him. "The hard drive is still intact. I'm going to take this back to the tower. It might be encrypted or it might be a trap with a virus. Either way, I have the perfect equipment for this back at the tower. Happy to have a potentially substantial lead on Slade for once, Robin smiled. Alright, let me know if you decrypted. I'll keep on Naruto until what? Robin said as he heard a noise. Turning around, he saw that there was no one else on the roof with him, but just as he turned back to watch Naruto, he was suddenly hit on the top of the head by something soft and was now covered in water. Arg. He shouted in surprise as he jumped and scanned the roof again, still not seeing anyone. Robin? He heard Cyborg shout. Robin, what's happening? It's okay, I'm fine, Robin said with a frown, shaking his head to get rid of most of the water. I think I got hit by a water balloon somehow. Cyborg didn't say anything but began to laugh at his friend's expense. Ha. Some kid got the drop on you? I'm so telling the others. His face glowing a little red out of slight embarrassment of being laughed at, Robin shouted into his earpiece, no one got the drop on me. I'm on the roof and no one else is here with me. Cyborg only continued to laugh, angering Robin a little. I'll see you at the tower, he said as he took out the earpiece. He just knew he wasn't going to hear the end of this from the others. Remembering why he was there, Robin crouched and looked at Naruto's apartment, frowning when he couldn't see the blonde anywhere. Glancing down at the street below, he spotted Naruto past a few buildings. Idly wondering how he got over there so fast, Robin used his grapple and landed on the next building. He continued using this method as he followed after the blonde, making sure to stay out of sight along the way. Not even a half hour later and Robin was seen walking into the comm room. Each Titan there glanced at him, idly wondering who had entered, before seeing the state their leader was in, and each of them began to laugh hysterically. Even Raven, who was simply sat on the couch and reading her book, had to hide her face behind the book to hide her snickering. Robin, their fearless leader who trained under the legendary Batman, was covered in bright neon orange paint, completely tied up from head to toe with rope, was missing a shoe, and his utility belt was nowhere to be seen. It took a while before his friends stopped laughing and began to help him, with the exception of Beast Boy, who was still laughing and comparing Robin to pumpkins and oranges. What happened? Cyborg asked with a small laugh, wiping his hands to get rid of some of the paint. Clearly annoyed, Robin answered with a huff, I don't want to talk about it. Once he was free from the rope, he shook his arm slightly to get the circulation back. Have you gotten anything from the hard drive yet? He asked, desperate to change the subject. Not yet, answered Cyborg with no surprise in his voice. I don't know how long it's going to take. And it's not gonna infect the tower with a virus or something? Asked Beast Boy with concern. Shaking his head, Cyborg beamed with pride as he said, not with my system it won't. You said that before but Gizmo managed to hack his way into our home, Raven pointed out, making Cyborg feel less pride than he did a second ago. I'm pretty sure that was just after Mammoth threw Beast Boy around like he was swatting a fly. That's not how it happened. Denied Beast Boy with a shout. You were literally a fly and Mammoth was trying to hit you with a door, replied Raven, shutting Beast Boy up. Robin, thankful for the distraction, took this opportunity to walk away to clean himself up. As soon as the doors shut, Raven's communicator beeped a couple of times, alerting her that she had a message from someone. Flipping it open, she slightly raised an eyebrow at the message from Naruto and asked, can someone please look up the video Orange Birdie? As he was doing as he was asked, Cyborg asked, why are we doing this? Naruto sent me a message asking me to, Raven answered. Hearing this made Cyborg and Beast Boy grin, making Raven already regret answering them. I forgot you two were dating, Beast Boy teased, with Raven glaring at him, her eyes turning red. Already shutting up, he said meekly, gulping in fear with Cyborg doing the same. Starfire wisely chose to hide behind the couch, knowing not to say anything to her friend when she was like this. Good, Raven growled, her eyes turning back to normal. The video began to play on the massive TV, grabbing everyone's attention. For the next few minutes, 4 of the 5 Titans watched a montage of Robin being pranked with water balloons, traps, wires, and paint. It was clear it happened all throughout the city, with timestamps showing that it all just happened minutes ago. Holy crap, the video has already gone viral, Cyborg said with laughter. Beast Boy was too busy rolling across the floor, holding his sides. And while Starfire was concerned for Robin, she too couldn't help but laugh at what she was seeing. The video finally ended with a black screen and a message saying, never mess with the fox. With a large red spiral behind it. It terrifies me that he was able to do this, commented Raven in disbelief. Beast Boy then grinned as he looked towards his best friend, hey, let's go show Robin, see what his reaction will be. Cyborg matched his grin as they both ran towards the door. Robin. You're gonna want to see this. Thank God they're gone, Raven said as she got herself comfortable to read another book from Naruto. Hearing the door open, Raven didn't bother to look as she figured it was just Beast Boy or Cyborg getting food. What she didn't expect, however, was for Starfire to suddenly squeal and shout, friend Naruto. Naruto, who only just opened the doors to the comm room, shouted in shock as an orange blur suddenly latched onto him. Looking, he saw it was Starfire. Star. Holy crap, you scared me. He said with laughter. It was very rare for someone to get one over him, but he'd let it slide for now. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Raven stand up from the couch. How did you get here? Raven asked as she walked over to them. How did I get in the tower, or how did I get on the island? Naruto asked, wanting her to clarify. Raven only shrugged. Both. And Star, you please let him go so he can answer. Starfire nodded and let go of Naruto, but she also managed to drag both him and Raven to the couch, where the two girls sat on either side of him. I walked over from the mainland to the island, he answered honestly, with Raven believing him as he had told her about his people being able to walk on water, among other things. Starfire looked confused at what Naruto said but didn't question it. And as for how I got in, the front door was open. That I can believe, Raven said, knowing that Beast Boy and Starfire had a bad habit of leaving the doors unlocked, and judging by how sheepish Starfire looked, it was probably her. But what are you doing here anyway? As soon as Robin finds out you're here, he won't be happy. Well, the main reason I'm here is to return this, Naruto said as he pulled out Robin's utility belt from somewhere behind his back. I was going to put it up online to see who would buy it, but I figured not to yet, he said, muttering the last word. Probably for the best. Robin's not exactly your biggest fan right now. Naruto gave a small tut, so he saw the video, huh? I would have loved to see his reaction to it. Oh, he hasn't seen it yet, Raven said, getting an evil-looking grin to appear on Naruto's face. You're too late, Cyborg and Beast Boy have already gone after Robin to show him the video. Now Naruto's grin turned into a pout, which made Raven smirk a little in amusement. Later that night. Cyborg randomly typed a few keys into his computer as he drank some his juice. He was currently in his room and has been there for a few hours, trying his best to crack into Slade's hard drive. Well, it was difficult, which was impressive and something he'll never say to Robin. It wasn't impossible. The only issue was that it was time-consuming. But have been using this time to whoop BB's ass on that new game of his, the man grumbled half-heartedly. The program he designed could have decrypted the hard drive by morning time, but Robin was forcing him to work on it to speed up the process after he and Beast Boy showed their leader the footage of him being pranked all over the city. Granted, it would mean the hard drive would be unlocked faster, it was still annoying. Just as he looked away from the screen in front of him, Cyborg heard a few beeps. Taking a look, he gave a triumphant smile while saying, finally. Instead of a loading bar, which had been on his screen for hours, a small handful of files appeared on the screen, each labeled differently from the other, with names of both heroes and villains. Knowing he should just call Robin, Cyborg was about to grab his communicator until he saw his own name. Curiosity getting the better of him, he clicked on the file. Documents and photos appeared in front of him. He raised an eyebrow at how the photos showed him fighting all the villains he had helped fight ever since he joined the Titans. But each photo was also taken from a distance. That's just creepy, Cyborg said, realizing that Slade was more of a stalker than he thought. He read the files next, with the first one having a lot of his personal information on it, such as his real name and the entirety of his high school career. It even mentions the accident he was in that made him this way. Closing the folder as he didn't want to be reminded of that day, Cyborg realized something. If Slade had this much information about him, information that wasn't public knowledge, then what did he have on Raven and Robin, the two most secretive members? Grinning at the chance to learn more about them and secretly hoping for embarrassing stuff, he clicked on Raven's file and frowned in disappointment at the lack of information. Everything here Eddie already knew. Wait, he mumbled, seeing another file attached to Raven's. Clicking on it, it brought up the picture of her infected with the probes. Why did Slade keep a copy of hers but not mine? Cyborg thought as he continued reading, wondering if it was the same for the others. The more he read, the more his eyes widened in shock. No way, he gasped out, staring at the screen. After a few seconds, he clumsily grabbed his communicator and quickly called Raven. Hey, Raven. Could you please come to my lab as soon as you can? Not even a minute later and he heard a knock at his door, which opened to reveal Raven. I still don't understand why you keep calling this your lab when it's just your bedroom. Ignoring that comment due to the matter at hand, Cyborg closed the door behind Raven and made sure it was locked in case of anyone barging in. Raven just rose an eyebrow at her friend's odd behavior and asked, so why did you ask me here? I managed to get into Slade's hard drive, Cyborg began, deciding it would be best to start at the beginning. Turns out Slade has been keeping tabs on everybody and has tried to get all the info he could about them. That's disturbing, Raven said with a frown. But what does that have to do with me? When Slade infected all of us with those probes of his, they did scans of our bodies, he explained, getting a disgusted look from Raven which he could agree with. Well, I don't know if he kept all of our scans, he kept yours for a certain reason. Raven stared at Cyborg for a few seconds, having a bad feeling about all of this. And the reason is what? Cyborg hesitated, not exactly sure how to put it. Growing impatient, Raven almost yelled, "Just tell me already. You're pregnant." Now Raven stayed silent with a look of shock. She had expected the scans to reveal that she wasn't exactly human, or if the probes were still a part of her. Hell, she would have expected the scans to reveal what she had eaten that day. But not that. The look of anger appeared on Raven's face as she glared at Cyborg. "This isn't funny," she snarled, "you and Beast Boy need to stop with these pranks or else I'm going to." "Just look for yourself," Cyborg interrupted out of fear. Moving, he allowed the smaller girl to approach his computer and read her own file. Slowly, the color began to drain from her face as she gained a look of horror. "I want to do some tests," Cyborg quietly said, noticing that Raven was completely still with shock. "I just want to make sure this isn't a mistake or something." Raven still said nothing as she stared at the monitor in front of her eyes focused on the word pregnant. As much as he wanted to ask how this happened or who the father even is, Cyborg kept quiet as he brought out a few small pieces of equipment. The tests were done within minutes, but the results took a bit longer, and each passing minute was nothing short of nerve-wracking for Raven. Reading what he already knew, Cyborg told Raven the same thing he had told her not 5 minutes ago. "You are pregnant." Raven sat there, staring into space with a hand on her stomach. A million thoughts were running through her head, making her more and more terrified with each passing second. Not knowing what to do, Raven said, "I have to go." Before Cyborg could say anything, Raven quickly sunk into the floor and disappeared. She didn't know where she was going. Whenever she used her abilities to travel around, she would always picture the location in her mind and then she would eventually appear there. This time, she didn't picture anything as she traveled. So it came as a surprise when she saw she had traveled all the way to the door of Naruto's apartment. The surprise didn't last long as the thought of her pregnancy returned full force, distracting her from the door opening before her. "I'm pregnant," Raven thought to herself with her hand to her stomach. She didn't bother asking herself how this happened as it was incredibly obvious. And it's not like the first thought she or Naruto had was to use protection when it happened, especially when she gave into her rage and passion, while Naruto reacted with the Kyuubi's chakra controlling him. Raven honestly didn't know what terrified her more. The thought of being a mother, wondering what Naruto's reaction will be, and she also wondered if her father was going to take advantage of this. Obviously, that last thought was the most terrifying to her. Raven was snapped out of her thoughts by Naruto snapping his fingers an inch from her face. "Finally got your attention," Naruto said with a smile, getting an annoyed look from Raven. "It was rude to snap your fingers in front of someone like that. What were you thinking about that made you distracted?" As much as she believed Naruto should know about her pregnancy, something told Raven to hold it off for now, to gather her thoughts as it was all so overwhelming. "I'll tell you later," she replied. Naruto easily heard the guilt in her voice, but decided to ignore it for now. Naruto walked back into his apartment with Raven following after. "Not that I mind the company, but why are you here?" Naruto asked as they both sat down, with Raven sitting on the couch and Naruto sitting on the armchair next to her. I wanted to get away from the team for a little while," Raven said, trying to think of an excuse. "They've been annoying me a lot more lately." "I'm guessing Robin has been bugging you since earlier today." Giving a nod, she said, "He doesn't want to talk to you just yet because he's still trying to figure out how you did all those tricks against him. But I'd be ready if I were you. He'll do everything and anything he can to get answers." Raven then gave a small smirk of amusement. "Now that I think about it, he'll probably try to make you a part of the team." "No thanks," he said with a frown, "I had enough of playing the hero." Raven nodded at that, understanding his reasons. "Did you ever go to that museum?" Raven asked suddenly. If he was surprised by the suddenness of the question, he didn't show it as he answered with a shrug, "Haven't had the chance. I've just been too busy this past couple of days." "Why don't we go now?" This time, Naruto gave a surprised look that almost matched Raven's. Clearly, she didn't know where that question had come from either. Glancing at the clock on the wall behind him, Naruto gave a frown. "Are you sure? The museum might be closing soon, either that or it's already closed." Seeing a slow hesitant nod, Naruto stood up. "Alright, let me just." Before he could finish his sentence, Raven stood and used her magic. They both sunk into the ground and, before Naruto they were now outside the museum. "Lock up," he finished. Raven blushed, feeling a little embarrassed at what she just did. Sorry," she said in a low, apologetic voice. Naruto smiled and nudged her a little to get her attention. Once she saw his smile, she lost the embarrassed look she had but kept the blush. "Don't worry about it. I'm in a good neighborhood so I doubt I'll be robbed." Turning towards the museum, Naruto's smile grew lessened a little. "Oh, looks like they're about to close." Looking for herself, Raven saw the museum guard guiding people out. "Sorry," she apologized again, looking even sadder than before, "I guess I'll just take you back to your home." "Hang on," Naruto said as he placed a hand on Raven's shoulder. With a grin, Naruto ran up to the guard and Raven saw the two exchange some words. She almost missed it, but she saw Naruto hand the guard some money. Running back over to his friend, Naruto had a triumphant look, "Let's go." He reached to Raven and gently took her hand in his without either noticing. "What? Did you bribe the guard?" she whispered loudly. "Yes," he answered honestly, nodding to the guard who nodded back with a smile. He opened the door for them and locked it behind them before leaving. "I gave him 100 to let us in." "But why did he leave?" Raven questioned as she glanced around. "He's going to have to let us out at some point." "Not really. Once he realized who you were, he knew you could just teleport us away at any time, so he didn't have to stick around," Naruto explained as they walked towards a map. "Let's see. Looks like we need to go upstairs and then go left. Is there any place you want to look at while we're here?" Taking a look at the map, Raven's eyes scanned it completely. Nothing really stood out to her and she wondered what Naruto wanted to look at on the floor above them. "I don't really see anything. Maybe if we pass something we can take a look." Still unknowingly holding hands, they casually walked through the museum, talking about anything that caught their eye. "Tell me, why did you want to go to the museum so suddenly?" Naruto asked once they got up to the second floor. "We could have gone at any time and your friends could have joined if you wanted." Suddenly remembering the reason for all of this, Raven gained a very nervous and worried look. Seeing this and not wanting her to have a panic attack, which Raven looked like she was about to have, Naruto pointed and changed the subject. "Here we are." Thankful for the distraction, Raven looked to where Naruto pointed and raised an eyebrow. "The history of Japanese mythology. Why do you want to go here?" Naruto didn't answer her as they walked in. They were surrounded by portraits and statues, but Naruto didn't look at any of them for any longer than a second. That is until they came across a painting. As soon as he saw it, Naruto stared at it with an intense focus, something that Raven easily noticed. It was a breathtaking painting, even Raven had to admit that. It showed a large blood-red creature with multiple tails, standing over a vast forest with a fiery orange sky as the background. Idly counting the tails, Raven quickly realized why Naruto wanted to see this painting in particular. "When I first saw this picture," Naruto softly said, his eyes still on the painting, "I didn't know what to think. It reminded me so much of my home that it scared me." "So, does that mean that?" Raven trailed off. "That is the nine-tailed fox, Kyuubi," he answered, staring into the creature's eyes. "A terrifying beast that can cause tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions with just a flick of its tails." He then laughed a little, "The painting actually makes the Kyuubi look nice as it's just standing there. The real Kyuubi is a lot more aggressive. And because of it, my life was a living hell," he finished quietly with Raven just hearing him. "But, if it wasn't for everything that happened, I wouldn't have winded up here." When he said this, he turned and looked Raven in the eyes. Hearing this, Raven realized something. Naruto had told her everything about his life, even mentioning what he went through as a child. With what happened to him when he was younger and how he was willing to help her since they met, she realized that there was nothing to fear about telling Naruto that she was pregnant. Finally gaining some courage, Raven said, "And Naruto, I need to tell you something." Seeing how serious this was, Naruto didn't say anything and made it clear that Raven had his full attention. I'm Naruto, I'm." She never got to finish her sentence as there was a loud crashing sound from the end of the hallway. Running to the corner, both Naruto and Raven glanced around the side and saw a man with golden armor walk through a smashed glass door. "Something tells me he isn't a security guard," Naruto whispered. "If I wanted to hear terrible jokes, I'd be listening to Beast Boy right now," Raven whispered back as she pulled out her communicator. "I need to let the others know about this." "Okay, well you do that, I'm going to follow him," Naruto said as he walked after the stranger. Raven tried to stop him and cursed when he disappeared out of sight. Easily keeping out of sight, Naruto watched as the man examined random paintings and statues before moving on, clearly looking for something specific. It shouldn't take too long for the Titans to show up, maybe 10 minutes at the most, he thought, ducking around another corner. Obviously, the man found what he was looking for as he examined a clock of all things. The clock of eternity, valuable in the past, priceless 100 years in the future. 100 years in the future. Naruto repeated in his head with narrowed eyes. He's from the future. That's smart, finding items in the past that are worth more in his time. Seeing the man raise his arm to get to the clock, Naruto decided to make his move. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," he said, making the man spin around in surprise. "Do you know how much it costs to replace those cases?" "Who are you?" the man demanded with a glare. "You're not one of the Titans and I don't recognize you." "Well, I am technically friends with the Titans, I'm not one of them. But that doesn't mean I'm just going to let you steal that clock." The man's glare turned into a smirk as the armor on his shoulders shifted. "And how do you plan on stopping me?" "Why would I ruin the surprise?" Naruto replied with his own smirk, "Good luck getting the clock." Slightly confused by Naruto's words, the man turned and gasped at the missing clock. What? How? He shouted in anger, aiming his weapons at Naruto who held the clock in his hands. Unless you want to die, I suggest you give that to me now, he growled. Seeing that Naruto wasn't moving, the man snarled, fine, have it your way. His shoulder-mounted blasters fired at Naruto, who avoided the lasers by jumping to the side. Deciding to have some fun, Naruto put the clock under his arm and created 2 clones, each nodding and running in different directions, already knowing what to do. So, do you have a name or something? Clone 1 said from behind, surprising the stranger as he never saw Naruto move. Spinning around, the man fired another laser, this time from his wrist, but still managed to miss the clone. You may call me Warp, he answered through gritted teeth. Not that it matters since I'll be done with you soon enough. Clone 2 picked up a piece of glass and threw it, hitting Warp on the side of his head and getting the man's attention. As soon as he turned, Clone 1 sprinted to him and kicked him in the back. Clone 2 followed up with a punch to the stomach before slamming his fist onto the back of Warp's head. If that was anyone else, they would have been knocked unconscious or at least be rattled with a bad headache. But Warp somehow managed to get back up as if nothing happened. Armor must be stronger than I thought, Naruto muttered. He watched as Warp stood before pieces of debris were encased in black magic and thrown at the man. About time you joined in, Naruto said, seeing Raven step up next to him. The others will be here in a couple of minutes, Raven answered, frowning as Warp destroyed the debris thrown at him with his lasers. You can make copies of yourself? Raven asked with interest, seeing one of Naruto's clones dodging another attack from Warp. Nodding with a bit of pride showing, Naruto answered, yep. It's called the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Usually, we were taught how to make regular clones which are nothing more than illusions, but I had too much chakra and no control to do that. This jutsu was perfect for me as it requires a vast amount of chakra and it makes solid clones that can help in fights. As she was about to ask how many he could make, a voice drew their attention back to the fight at hand. Boss. We're in a bit of a situation here. Clone 2 shouted as he and Clone 1 were encased in ice. A second after they were frozen, they both disappeared in a puff of smoke. Since when could he use ice? Naruto asked out loud. Turning just in time, Naruto saw Warp throw a disc in their direction. Look out. Naruto shouted, pushing Raven away as the disc stuck itself onto his back. The next thing he knew, he was being electrocuted and the current wasn't stopping. Gritting his teeth through the pain, Naruto tried to reach for the disc, but the electricity was making it impossible. Warp had a grin on his face as he took the clock from Naruto's hands. Raven ran to Naruto, using her magic to throw random pieces of debris at Warp, who jumped away to avoid being hit. Once she made it to her friend, she quickly saw the disc on Naruto's back and used her abilities to destroy it. Are you okay? Raven asked. That was very unpleasant, Naruto muttered, the electricity that coursed through him reminding him of Sasuke's Chidori. While Warp's attack wasn't on the same level, having electricity pushed through you was still a pain. Titans go. Robin shouted as he and the others finally arrived, getting a groan out of Naruto and a sigh of relief from Raven. Starfire flew in first, firing multiple starbolts at Warp. These attacks were useless as Warp easily deflected each bolt and sent them all back at Starfire, who wasn't expecting the sudden attack. Beast Boy was next to attack as he shifted into a lion and charged. Seeing the green beast running at him, Warp aimed with the weapon on his wrist and waited until Beast Boy was close enough. As soon as the lion was within range, Warp attacked as he shot Beast Boy with electricity, shocking him back to his original form. This is pointless, Warp said with arrogance, just as Cyborg fired with his sonic cannon. At the last second, Warp managed to create a barrier, blocking Cyborg's attack. I've studied each of your tactics from the records in my time, he said, throwing a disc at Cyborg. It landed on the teen's chest before it began to shock him. There isn't anything you can do to stop me. Robin shouted as he charged with his bow staff. Warp merely sidestepped, grabbed a staff from Robin's hands, and threw the Titan leader away. While in the air, Robin turned and threw a few discs at Warp, who threw one as well. Warp's disc sliced through each of Robin's before exploding once it flew into the wall behind Robin. Without seeing any of the Titans in his way, Naruto saw his chance as he readied his Rasengan. Running at the armored man with Raven throwing more pieces of debris, Naruto reared back his arm. Seeing the attack coming, Warp quickly created a barrier as the Rasengan made contact. For a second, nothing happened until the Rasengan and the barrier exploded. Thrown back, Naruto slammed into Raven and both fell onto the ground, with Naruto managing to land with Raven on top of him. Enough of this. Warp shouted, using this chance to leave. His chest piece glowed white before it opened a portal in front of him. It's been fun, Titans, but I have a very bright future ahead of me. Think again. Naruto shouted from right next to Warp. The man gasped in both surprise and horror as the clock in his hand was replaced by Naruto in a puff of smoke. Out of the corner of his eye, Warp saw the clock in Raven's hands. With Warp distracted, Naruto punched the man in the face, finally landing a damaging blow as all other attacks were useless. No. Warp shouted, blood dripping from his mouth thanks to his cut lip. Making for a hasty retreat, Warp jumped into the portal as Naruto grabbed his leg. But the portal was stronger than Naruto thought as he too began to fall through it. "Naruto!" shouted Raven with wide eyes, seeing the blonde get dragged into the portal as well. Everyone ran for the portal, but it closed as soon as Naruto was through. Everyone was quiet as they stared into the spot the portal closed at. "Naruto!" Raven called out, but she received no reply. Opening his eyes, Naruto groaned as pain radiated through him. "What the hell happened?" he asked out loud before noticing how cold it suddenly got. Sitting up, Naruto stared in confusion as he saw that he was surrounded by snow in a very rundown looking Jump City. What the hell happened? Story start. Rundown was not a good way to describe how Jump City looked. It would be more accurate to describe the city as ravaged by war. Multiple buildings and streets were blown to hell, leaving nothing but rubble in their place. Every window that Naruto could see was smashed to pieces, and he could even see bullet holes in every wall. He could hear the sounds of gunshots in the far distance, and he could see a fire on the other side of the city, its glow a contrast to the night sky. But the one thing that made Naruto worry the most was the T-Tower on the other side of the city. Even from the distance he was at, Naruto could see that there was something wrong with the letter-shaped building. The top right part of the T-shape was missing, and the building even looked slightly slanted. What happened here? Naruto muttered to himself as he began to feel worried. The last thing he remembered was being dragged through the portal that Warp made and then hearing Raven shout his name. "Ah crap," Naruto said in realization. "I fell through Warp's portal. Did I travel through time?" he shouted to himself, remembering how Warp mentioned being from the future a few times. It must have been the future as there was never a time when the T-Tower or Jump City was in ruins like this. What he couldn't tell was how far into the future he was. No point in standing around, Naruto began to walk in the direction of the Titan's home. It was as good a place as any to start and probably the most likely to get answers. But just as he started walking, his foot kicked something metal. Looking down, Naruto saw a cracked metal object with a few wires sticking out the back. Picking it up, Naruto realized it was a part of Warp's suit until he ripped it off just after they went into the portal. He pocketed it, figuring it might help get him home, and then began his walk. Crossing Jump City was not safe at all. Thugs and villains ruled the street, smashing anything in the path of destruction. He would have taken the rooftops instead, but could clearly see that there were random people with rifles at the top overlooking the roof edge, ready to shoot anything they wanted. He's only been down 2 streets and has already fought off more than a dozen criminals. One of whom was kind enough, unconscious, to lend him a black jacket with fur around the cuffs and neck to keep him warm. This helped him blend in more with criminals and also helps keep him warm in this cold weather. The question kept appearing in Naruto's head and it was beginning to annoy him. Where were all the civilians and heroes? They couldn't have just vanished, so something must have happened. And that question not only annoyed him, it also scared Naruto a little. Finally, Naruto said as he crossed the water and reached the island and Titan's tower. Now that he was closer, the building really was slanted as he thought earlier. Would have been here sooner if it wasn't for that stupid pyromaniac. That pyromaniac he mentioned was someone who loved throwing Molotovs at cars and stores. It was just Naruto's luck to be seen by the maniac and Chaz down an alley, which also had a group of criminals with sharp weaponry. Walking up to the broken down tower doors, Naruto sighed when he saw the entrance was blocked by fallen debris from the floors above. It would take an hour at least to get through it, and that was with a Rasengan. Not seeing any other choice, Naruto took a few steps back and ran. Concentrating chakra to his feet, he jumped high and landed on the wall high above the entrance. Not wasting any time, he took off in a run towards the top floor. Well, he's only been in the tower 2 or 3 times, it was hard to forget where rooms were, so he knew exactly where to go. In the comm room, Naruto glanced in through the shattered window. He couldn't sense anyone inside the building, but there was still something off. It felt like something was dampening his sensory abilities slightly. Deciding it was safe, Naruto jumped in and frowned. The room was just as he had expected. Ransacked, wrecked and covered in dust. No one has been here in years. Ignoring everything else, Naruto walked past a broken and moldy couch and went down the hall. The first bedroom he came across was Robin's, the nameplate next to the door making it obvious. He stepped into the room but frowned when he saw it was completely empty. The room opposite belonged to Cyborg. What caught Naruto's attention was that the door was locked. A bit of brute force got it opened, no problem. Just as he expected from the half-man half-robot, the room was filled with electronics and devices. All of it was smashed to pieces. Computer screens were shattered, electronics littered the floor, and cables were tangled and cut everywhere including the roof. Not seeing anything that could help him, Naruto turned to leave but stopped for a second. On the wall next to him, he spotted claw marks. Reaching his hand towards it, he placed each finger in the crevices and saw that each finger was distanced perfectly, like the claws that did this was almost human. Thinking it wasn't important, Naruto dropped his hand and left the room. The room to the left of Cyborg's was Beast Boy's, but what was odd was that there was a claw mark going through the name. The door was also missing, and the room looked empty except for a bed, some random old clothing, and a few comics lying on the floor. Naruto half expected the room to be an absolute mess, but with him being in the future, the place could have been cleaned out for all he knew. Not seeing anything useful in Beast Boy's room, Naruto moved on to Starfire's. He stopped at the door as he saw the entire room missing, floors and walls included. He could see debris down on the ground far from the tower, showing that something similar to an explosion happened here. Coming to the final room, Naruto hesitated as he stared at Raven's name. He hoped that when he opened her door, he would see her floating as she meditated or reading one of her many books. But he knew he wouldn't see her, and that thought terrified him more than he thought it would. Without realizing it, he opened the door and stepped inside. Just like every other room, it was old, and any furniture that was here before was either gone or broken. If it wasn't for the fact that Naruto has been here before, he would have thought nobody ever lived here. If there was one major benefit to being a shinobi, it would be that you can develop a type of sixth sense that lets you know when danger is near. And at this moment, Naruto knew he was not alone in this room. Ever so slightly, he turned his head to look at the door but saw no one. Nothing happened for a few seconds, and just as Naruto was about to shrug the feeling off, he heard some glass being stepped on just outside the room he was in. Making sure to look like his guard was down, Naruto left the room and walked to the comm room. The person will most likely attack in there because the room had more open space compared to the hall. They're not very good at hiding, Naruto thought with amusement. Whenever he turns around, he sees the person just ducking around a corner and he can even hear their breathing. They didn't attack me as soon as they saw me, which means they're planning something. Why did it get cold all of a sudden? The cold was suddenly very bitter and Naruto could clearly see frost appear on the shards of glass on the floor. Without warning, Naruto's entire body was suddenly encased in ice all the way up to his neck. Ha! Too easy. A young voice gloated with a laugh. Naruto would have turned to look at the person if they could, but the person jogged over and stood in front of him, allowing Naruto to see them clearly. It was a boy around his age with medium-length brown hair. He wore a thin yellow shirt and black trousers beneath a large black coat, large enough to touch the floor. There was a yellow line coming up from the coat arms that created a large X on the back of the coat. Now that the fun's over, why don't you tell me why you're here? Who said the fun's over? Naruto replied with a smirk, confusing the stranger. I did. When I captured you, the boy said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Still holding his smirk, Naruto said, you might want to turn around then. Snorting, the boy laughed, you think I'd fall for that? The boy shouted as he was suddenly launched forward, slamming into the wall behind Naruto. Who did that? He shouted, standing back up, looking ready to attack. That would be me, the real Naruto replied as he stood by his encased clone. The boy just blinked, his mouth opening and closing like a fish as he looked at the two Narutos. The Naruto in the ice disappeared in a puff of smoke, shocking the attacker even more. What's your name? Name's Iceman, the boy said with a proud look, strongest member of the new Titans. For a long moment, Naruto just stared at the boy before finally saying, sure, whatever you say. Iceman gained a slightly offended look at how Naruto dismissed his statement. What year is it? Everyone I've met so far has tried to kill me, so no one's answered me yet. Iceman raised an eyebrow. Have you been living in some cave or something? It's 2040. So I'm 20 years in the future, Naruto mumbled to himself with a frown. Well, that answered a question for Naruto, it gave him another one. What happened in the past 20 years for everything to turn out like this? What about the Teen Titans? What happened to them? Are we playing 20 questions? Iceman shouted, getting annoyed. Or are we fighting? With that shout, Iceman slammed his hands to the ground. The ground all around the room froze solid and Naruto, acting on instinct, jumped away. This was a good idea as the spot he was in exploded into spikes of ice. As soon as he landed on the floor, Naruto was forced to jump away again and again as everywhere he stood, ice spikes appeared. After 2 or 3 jumps, Naruto jumped as high as he could and landed on the ceiling, where the ice hadn't reached yet. Hey. I can tell that you're not like the others out there. Naruto shouted, trying to stop the fight. All he wanted were answers. So let's just calm down and talk. Iceman ran forward with his hand raised, creating stares towards Naruto. His other fist was encased in ice as he reared it back for a punch. Or not, Naruto said as he ducked towards the roof, avoiding the frozen punch to his head. Grabbing Iceman's arm, Naruto swung him around and threw him to the other side of the room. Iceman, using his momentum, created a trail of ice and used it to slide at high speed around the room. You're gonna have to do better than that. Iceman shouted, firing balls of ice one after another. Dodging the attacks, Naruto was forced to once again jump around the room. This fight was beginning to annoy Naruto. He wasn't very good at fighting enemies from a distance, and Iceman kept his distance. At this moment, Naruto really wished he had Kakashi and Jiraiya teach him more jutsu. Don't get him wrong, he loved the Rasengan and being able to walk on walls and water, but this was just a pain in the ass. Once this is all over and done with, I am so going to train some more, Naruto thought as he took out a few kunai, thankful he made it a habit to keep his pouch on him. He idly thought about trying to create his own jutsu, but doubted he would be able to do that. Putting that thought away for later, Naruto threw several kunai at Iceman, who just laughed every time they missed and impaled the roof. "Man, you can't aim for shit." Iceman taunted with a grin. Returning his grin with a smirk, Naruto responded by pointing, "Look again." Confused, Iceman looked up. His confusion grew when he saw burning tags attached to the kunai. It was the sizzling noise it made that made Iceman realize what they were. One by one, they exploded the roof. Debris began to fall everywhere, and Iceman swerved all over the place to try and avoid it all. One particular piece managed to fall just behind Iceman and shatter the ice he was standing on, causing him to fall to the ground. From his spot, Naruto saw a huge part of the roof fall towards Iceman. Not wanting the powered teen to die, Naruto ran towards him and grabbed him, jumping out of the window they were next to. Because of how slanted the tower was, they were a lot closer to the edge of the island than Naruto thought and were falling towards the water. He was thankful for that as he had no idea how they would have survived if they were going towards the ground. They fell into the water in a splash, both emerging to the surface within seconds. "You okay?" Naruto asked. Iceman was going to answer until he looked up. "Look out!" he shouted. Also looking, Naruto saw that the tower hit the ground and now pieces of it and the ground were falling towards them. They both ducked their heads under the water and swam down as hard as they could. Because it was night, it was impossible to see through the water as it was pitch black. Even as he swam down, Naruto could feel debris smash into the water next to him. Not able to hold his breath any longer, Naruto turned and swam upward. Once he broke through to the surface, he gasped for breath, hearing Iceman doing the same. "Yeah?" Iceman said as things finally began to calm down. "I think I'm okay," he finished, answering Naruto's question from before they died. "So you're from the past and you're stuck here until you can figure out a way to get back to your own time?" Iceman, or Bobby, he told Naruto when they got to shore, said as they stood in front of the T-Tower remains. "Dude, that sucks." "Tell me about it," Naruto agreed with a nod. "I came here because I was either hoping to find one of my friends or at least get some answers as to what happened for everything to turn out like this." Bobby laughed a little at that before he admitted. "I don't really know myself. It all happened before I was born. I do know one person that could help, but he's a hard ass and doesn't play well with others. He doesn't really tell us what happened either, I should say." Turning around, he began walking towards the city, "This way. I'd imagine my boss would want to meet you." Watching Bobby walk away, Naruto waited a few seconds as he weighed his options. Should he follow Bobby or should he just go on his own and find answers his way? "Wait up," Naruto called as he caught up with Bobby, deciding this was probably his best bet. "So where is it we're going?" "Our base," Iceman answered honestly. "It's not that far. We're camped out in this old pizzeria in the middle of the city." "I think I know the place you're talking about," Naruto admitted but didn't clarify. He found it funny that the new Titans were stationed where the Teen Titans used to hang out back in his time. They continued walking into the city, avoiding criminals whenever they could. If they had to fight, then Naruto and his clones, combined with Iceman and his abilities, made quick work of anyone that tried to fight. At the end of an alley, Bobby leaned around the corner to make sure the coast was clear. "There it is," he said with a sigh of relief. Naruto peered around the corner as well, easily spotting the pizza corner standing there like it did in his time. Other than a few boarded up windows and a couple of missing letters from its sign, it looked surprisingly intact, almost exactly like it did back in his time. "Come on, now's the perfect chance," Bobby finished as he began to run for the base. Naruto didn't trust it though. When he first crossed the city to the tower and traveled back with Iceman, they encountered thugs and criminals around every corner. Now all of a sudden there was no one around. With that thought, Naruto just managed to grab Bobby's arm. "Something's not right," he warned, his eyes darting around with suspicion. "What are you talking about?" "We're safe here," Bobby argued, shrugging Naruto's hand off his arm. "Just listen," Naruto insisted. They both stayed silent for a few seconds with Bobby giving Naruto an annoyed and confused look. "Do you hear anything at all?" Shouting, fighting, gunshots from the city. Now Bobby gained a look of realization. This has to be a trap. The roar from above surprised both Naruto and Iceman as they looked up. They didn't have enough time to process what they saw as they were forced to jump away from the alley when something crashed into the ground. Snow and pieces of concrete exploded from the impact, showing that whatever it was that hit the ground was incredibly heavy. The large person stood up from the spot Naruto and Bobby jumped from, and once the snow settled, they saw who it was. The person was huge, in both size and stature. They only wore a pair of black trousers, torn off just below their knees, and it was barely held together as it was. The person, now clearly a man, had long, wild orange hair that reached his mid-back, and he had a beard to match. "Missed," the man said with a deep voice. "You both were lucky to dodge." "Mammoth," Iceman hissed with a glare, encasing his fists in ice. "I thought I smelt something rotten around here," he taunted. Hearing the person's name made Naruto realize who this was. Mammoth was a part of the Hive Trio, a small-time group of villains who were basically the Titans' rivals. Naruto had only ever seen Mammoth on the news, but from what he could tell, the man never used to look like that. "Aw, the icicle got a little friend," Mammoth said, noticing Naruto. "Good, that's another person I get to kill." "You and what army?" Iceman fired back. He always hated being called an icicle, he just found it insulting for some reason. Mammoth grinned beneath his beard as he took a step forward. Even with a single step and on snow no less, Naruto could have sworn he felt it from where he stood. "I don't need an army," the huge man said as a mark appeared on his left shoulder, right where his heart should be. Squinting his eyes, Naruto could just see that it was shaped like an S. "I learned a few things since we last fought," Mammoth said, indicating to the S symbol still visible on his chest. "After you and that bitch stopped me, my master gave me this gift." His smirk then grew into an evil smile as his eyes suddenly glowed a dark red. Bright red energy appeared from the mark and swirled around him. He hunched over as if in pain before he physically grew in size as his skin darkened. Parts of his skin on his arms, chest and neck actually tore and showed the muscle beneath, which disgusted both Naruto and Bobby. The large man then began to walk towards Naruto and Bobby, getting faster with each step. Acting quickly, Bobby placed his hands down and froze the ground, hoping to at least slow Mammoth down. But it didn't work as Mammoth's weight, combined with the strength of his steps, shattered the ice with every step he took. "Shit," Bobby said in shock. "That usually worked with a big guy." "Shadow clone jutsu," Naruto shouted as he made a dozen clones that ran to Mammoth as soon as they were created. But a single swing from Mammoth dispelled half of the clones. "Shit," Naruto said, knowing that this was not going to be easy. He focused his chakra and created a Rasengan, but before he could use it, Mammoth was already in front of him. He thrust his hand forward, but Mammoth grabbed his arm, the Rasengan disappearing before he was tossed away. Iceman covered his left fist in ice, and he swung as hard as he could. He managed to hit home as his fist collided with Mammoth's jaw. Grinning at the sound of something shattering, Iceman's look of triumph changed to panic as he saw it was his ice that shattered instead of his opponent's jaw. "You're no match for me now. Tonight, you and your friends will all die," Mammoth said, his voice deeper than before. As if he was going to prove what he said, he punched Iceman in the stomach, making Bobby double over in pain, before he kicked the teen away. Naruto saw all this happen the second he landed and was even more shocked at Mammoth's speed, as the giant of a man was already in front of him with his hand around his throat. Gasping for air, Naruto punched and kicked as hard as he could, but Mammoth didn't even flinch. Mammoth then lifted Naruto into the air and slammed him into a wall before turning and throwing him to the ground and stamping his foot onto Naruto's back as hard as he could. "Is that it?" Mammoth asked, but neither Naruto or Bobby answered. Skiing in disappointment as he saw neither one move, Mammoth began to walk towards Iceman until he heard a grunt from behind. Turning, he was surprised to see Naruto stand up. "You still alive?" Wiping his mouth in case there was any blood, which there wasn't, Naruto gave a small pained laugh. "You're gonna have to try harder than that. My grandmother hit harder than that," he shouted, fondly remembering all the times Tsunade punched him through a wall. As if he was challenged, Mammoth snarled as he ran to Naruto, who just stood there. As soon as Mammoth was close enough, Naruto jumped to the side, narrowly avoiding being slammed into as Mammoth passed him. "Shadow clone jutsu," Naruto shouted once again with a hand sign. He created clone after clone, each one being destroyed quickly by Mammoth, who was beginning to get annoyed. As all the clones distracted the behemoth, the real Naruto ran to Iceman and helped the teen up. "Go and find your friends while I hold off Mammoth." Iceman looked as though he wanted to argue, but the look Naruto gave him made him relent. "Fine," Bobby said as he made a path of ice for himself. "But don't die, you hear me? I want a rematch when this is all done." "You got it," Naruto replied before Iceman slid away and out of sight. Mammoth, destroying the final clone, looked at Naruto and laughed a little. "Do you really think you can take me by yourself?" "Without him here," Naruto replied, talking about Bobby, "he's not in the way anymore." Concentrating, he allowed the Kyuubi's chakra to envelop him and change his features. Mammoth looked surprised but brushed the changes off as nothing. "You think some claws and fangs are going to change anything?" Mammoth stated, "I'm still going to break every bone in your body when I'm done." "Funny," Naruto said with a snort, another deeper voice overlapping with his, "I was going to say the same thing." Mammoth was surprised when Naruto vanished and then reappeared right in front of him, and before he could react, Naruto punched him hard in the stomach. While the attack wasn't strong enough to cause any serious damage, it was still enough to get a grunt out of Mammoth. While Naruto's fist was still driven into his gut, Mammoth grabbed Naruto and threw him away. Spinning in the air, Naruto landed on a wall and ran to the ground. He ran at Mammoth again, and the two traded blow after blow, neither letting up on the other as they both continued their assault. Swiping down with his claws, Naruto growled in anger as he saw he only scratched the skin, not even breaking it enough to draw blood. Mammoth tried to grab Naruto, but the blonde ducked and gave Mammoth a barrage of punches to his gut before giving Mammoth a left hook to the jaw. Mammoth backhanded Naruto into the air before grabbing his leg and swinging him to the ground. He repeated this, slamming Naruto into the ground and walls multiple times. Being slammed into another wall, Naruto managed to twist himself out of Mammoth's grasp. As he stood above Mammoth on the wall, Naruto did his best to strike at the large man's head, but Mammoth either took the blows head-on or managed to dodge a few as he tried to grab Naruto again. Becoming enraged as Naruto was always just out of his reach, Mammoth roared as he smashed the wall Naruto was standing on instead. Naruto, not expecting to lose his footing, fell down as Mammoth grabbed him by his head and slammed him to the ground again. Mammoth then picked up Naruto by his arm and grinned. "After all that, you were nothing special," Mammoth said with a sneer. Concentrating some more, Naruto tried to summon more of the Kyuubi's chakra, but, to his shock, the chakra was slowly receding back to the seal. His features began to turn back to normal as he glared at Mammoth, his red eyes turning blue. "Damn it, Kyuubi. Give me your chakra," he shouted to his tenant, but there was no reply. Rearing his arm back, Mammoth gave one last toothy grin before saying, "Now you're gonna die," and it was all for nothing. "I wouldn't say for nothing," a female's voice said from behind. Spinning around while still holding Naruto, Mammoth growled. "Hey, big boy," a woman with long black hair said in a flirtatious manner. From where he was being held, Naruto could have sworn that it was Starfire he was looking at if it wasn't for the black hair that ended like it was on fire and the clothing. She wore a sleeveless black suit that exposed her stomach and had parts glowing purple. She also wore gray gloves going up to her elbow. Whoever this person was, Naruto could tell Mammoth didn't like her. "Bitch," Mammoth snarled as he dropped Naruto like he was less important than this newcomer, which actually insulted him a little. The woman gave a small TSK before correcting Mammoth. "How many times do I have to tell you? My name is Blackfire," she finished as her fists and eyes glowed purple before she gave Mammoth an uppercut to his jaw, actually managing to launch him off his feet and fly over a shocked Naruto. He landed on the ground with a huge crash, denting the concrete he landed on. Blackfire sauntered over to Naruto and looked him up and down. "So you're this Naruto that Bobby told us to help?" "Yeah?" Naruto replied with a bit of confusion lacing his voice, mostly directed at how this person managed to land an effective hit on Mammoth when he himself could not while using the Kyuubi's chakra. "You don't look like much," Blackfire stated after a few seconds of silence. "I'm sorry, are you here to help me or just insult me?" Naruto asked with his eyebrow twitching in annoyance as he stood, cradling his left arm against his chest. It wasn't broken, thankfully, but it did hurt like hell. Blackfire just smiled before turning her attention to Mammoth who was standing up again. "Damn, that usually knocks him down for a few more minutes," she said with a frown. "Oh, did Bobby not tell you?" Naruto asked with sarcasm. "Big, tall, and grotesque, there got a gift from his master," he explained, using air quotations for gift, "and whatever that gift is, it's made him faster and stronger than what he was before." The woman gained a small look of interest before giving Naruto a sultry smile. "Don't worry, handsome, once I deal with him we can have our own fun, alright?" Before Naruto could even think of a response, Blackfire floated with her fists and eyes glowing again and flew at high speed towards Mammoth as the giant of a man charged at them in rage. Naruto stood at the sidelines and watched as the two traded blow after blow, almost mesmerized by how ferocious the two fought. However, he didn't want to just sit on the sidelines, so he ran forward and jumped past a surprised Blackfire to land a strong kick to Mammoth's jaw. The second he touched the ground, Naruto spun and punched the back of Mammoth's left knee as hard as he could, forcing Mammoth to fall to his knees. Blackfire was quick to join in as she and Naruto kicked and punched as hard and as fast as they could, battering Mammoth from every angle. With yet another roar, Mammoth backhanded Blackfire away and then grabbed Naruto's arm. He swung him around in the air before throwing him. Naruto collided with Blackfire and the two landed on the ground before they quickly got back to their feet. "I think we need to come up with a plan," Naruto suggested, seeing that Mammoth only had a few bruises here and there, while he and Blackfire had multiple cuts. "My plan," Blackfire said as she glared at Mammoth, "punch his head in until his little brain leaks through the cracks." Naruto stared at Blackfire until she gave a roar and flew at Mammoth again. "The fuck is wrong with you?" Naruto said as he shook his head. Even the threats that Zabuza made on the bridge in the Land of Waves still weren't as morbid as that disturbing comment. Yeah, she's always been like that, Iceman said as he walked up next to Naruto. Usually it's best to stay out of her way until she works it out of her system. You took your time getting back here, Naruto commented as he turned to look at the ice-wielding hero. Could you only find Blackfire? No, I found everyone, but when I said it was Mammoth that found us, Blackfire told everyone to fuck off while she deals with him, Bobby explained. Like I said, best to stay out of her way. There was a loud smack and before Naruto and Bobby had time to look, a purple blur flew past them and into a wall. Turning, they saw Blackfire stumble her way out of the rubble with a few cuts here and there, as well as a furious look on her face. What honestly freaked Naruto out was that the woman was actually growling. She flew at Mammoth again, pushing past and knocking over Bobby at the same time. But that was when Naruto saw it. An opening. Mammoth was too distracted, letting his hatred for Blackfire control him. Because of this, he was full of openings that Naruto knew he could use to stop the giant man. But Naruto knew a simple Rasengan wouldn't do much as all Mammoth had to do last time was grab his arm. This one had to be stronger. So, creating a clone, they created a regular Rasengan before concentrating as much chakra as they could into it. The massive chakra continued growing until it was 20 times its original size. Naruto could barely hold it up even with the clone helping, so they knew they had to do this quick. They ran at Mammoth, dashing past a shocked Bobby, and shouted, "Get out the way." Blackfire held Mammoth's fists as the two struggled to push against the other. Hearing Naruto shout, she looked and grinned, seeing the attack quickly approaching. Deciding to help, Blackfire let go of Mammoth's fists and crouched down as the large man tried to grab her. Her fists glowing a bright purple, Blackfire punched as hard as he could at Mammoth's chest, launching him in the air. "Now!" she shouted. Now having the perfect chance, both Naruto jumped in the air as Mammoth finally saw them near him. But he couldn't do a thing as they slammed their attack into his chest. Massive Rasengan. The original Naruto shouted as his clone dispelled, forcing the jutsu to grind into Mammoth. There was an explosion, launching both Naruto and Mammoth in opposite directions. Naruto slammed into a wall, falling to the ground unconscious. Mammoth landed hard on the ground, his impact shaking the earth. Grunting, Mammoth tried to stand, but the attack left him wounded. Even with his thick skin, it somehow shredded through it all, and now he was bleeding badly. "Damn it," he growled, holding his chest. There was no way he could fight that alien bitch now, so with a growl, the S mark on his chest glowed before a circle appeared around him. It glowed as he slowly sunk, being watched by both Bobby and Blackfire. "Next time I see you," he said, glaring daggers at Blackfire, "I'll kill you." "Looking forward to it," Blackfire said back. As much as she wanted the guy dead, it was always entertaining to see him run away. He disappeared, the glowing red circle fading away as if it was never there to begin with. When Naruto woke up, the first thing he noticed was that he was in an old restaurant. There was dust on nearly every surface. The floors, walls, and roof all had cracks and mold in multiple spots. Every window that he could see were shattered and boarded up. Finally, the lights were off and the only source of light was the candle that sat on top of a small crate next to his makeshift bed. "You're up," a young voice said happily. Looking, Naruto blinked as he didn't recognize the girl. She had long brown hair tied up in a ponytail and brown eyes, along with a kind smile. She was wearing black cargo pants and knee-high padded boots. Beneath her black leather jacket, she wore a dark blue hoodie with matching gloves. "Bobby said you were tough, but I thought it'd be another day before you woke up." "Where am I?" Naruto asked, slowly sitting up. He was shirtless, but his torso was bandaged on some parts. Lighting another candle so there was more light, the woman answered, "Jump City Pizza Corner. It's our safe house." "Was our safe house, sorry. Because of Mammoth knowing where we were, we'll be moving to a new safe house as soon as we can. Good thing you're awake otherwise Bobby would have had to carry you again." And he wasn't gentle about it the first time either. Naruto nodded at that. He doubted Bobby would have dropped him, but the guy didn't look physically strong, so he must have struggled a little. "What's your name?" "I'm assuming you're a friend because you mentioned Bobby and Blackfire." "My name is Catherine Pride, but everyone calls me Kitty because of my code name, Shadowcat," the woman answered with a smile. "And you're Naruto something." "Uzumaki," Naruto corrected with a small laugh. "So how long was I out for? And where is everyone?" "In order. You were unconscious for an hour. Don't worry, you're perfectly fine besides a few cracked ribs, cuts, and a possible concussion," answered Kitty. "Blackfire is out patrolling the area in case there are any more ambushes and Bobby's downstairs eating as always." Getting up to his feet, Naruto saw his shirt and borrowed jacket and put them on, being careful as he did so. Following Kitty, they walked down the stairs and Naruto saw Bobby at a table, eating a sandwich. The only sign of an injury on him was small plaster on his right cheek. "Hey, you're awake," Bobby said happily, standing up but still eating his food. "How are you feeling?" Hurts to breathe a little and I have a headache. But, all things considered, I can't complain, Naruto shrugged with a grin, making the two others laugh. Quickly finishing his food, while also trying not to choke, Bobby nodded towards the doors. Come on. Boss wants to meet you. Kitty walked over as Naruto followed. As he wondered what kind of person their boss was and what possible abilities they have, Naruto watched as Bobby opened the door and all three walked in. They were in some sort of office, with a large table on the middle that was covered in all sorts of maps and paperwork. Hunched over the table, Naruto saw a man with green fur with no top on. Naruto, Bobby said, meet our leader, Animal Man. Animal Man stood up straight before slowly turning around. As he did so, Naruto's eyes widened in shock as he quickly recognized who this person was. Beast Boy. The former Teen Titan was now taller, a lot taller. His hair had grown out and reached his shoulders, and there were 3 long scars going from the top of his chest to his stomach. Looking into his eyes, Naruto knew this person was not the same Beast Boy he knew from his timeline. Before anyone could do anything, Animal Man rushed forward with impressive speed. He grabbed Naruto by his neck and slammed him in the wall behind him, glaring heatedly at the blonde. You bastard. He shouted, his voice growling. He didn't care that he was choking Naruto as he continued shouting, this is your fault. What? Naruto breathed out, struggling against Animal Man's grip. He was surprisingly strong. Let go. Bobby and Kitty stood aside, unsure of what to do. They have never seen their leader so angry before, it actually frightened them a little. Snarling, Animal Man threw Naruto across the room. This. He shouted as Naruto stood, using the table to help. He gestured to the broken window that showed the sorry state of the city. This hell is all because of you. I don't understand. Naruto shouted back, ready in case Animal Man attacked him again. What did I do? Tell me. You left. Animal Man roared, grabbing a wooden chair and throwing it towards Naruto. He didn't move, letting the piece of furniture fly past and crash into the wall behind him. We watched you fall into that portal. You could have just let Warp leave with that fucking clock, but instead, you had to stop him. You left us, he said, his voice getting quieter, but his words still held his anger. You left her. Hearing this, Naruto looked down. He never thought about that. He never thought about how this would have affected the Titans when he disappeared. What happened after I disappeared? Naruto asked calmly, taking slow steps until he was near Animal Man. I need to know. But those answers would have to wait as Blackfire burst into the room, nearly knocking over Bobby and Kitty as they stood near the door. We have to go, now. She said in urgency. Something fell from the roof and into the room with everyone. Through the dust, Naruto saw that the thing that fell was a creature made of fire. It lunged at him, but Naruto quickly moved away before having to dodge as another creature crashed through the ceiling and then another. Everything they touched lit on fire before the smoke and flames became too much. Grabbing another chair, Naruto slammed it against the one blocking everyone, move. It quickly turned to chaos as there were more of these creatures in the next room, and no doubt there were dozens more outside. Naruto was punching and kicking, unable to make any clones because there was no room. Animal Man had shifted and turned into a large bear as he swiped at every creature that came at him, as Blackfire fired as many black bolts as she could. Iceman was using a baseball bat made out of ice to smash his way through. Finally, Kitty, surprising Naruto, was phasing through everyone and everything before attacking from behind with her fists. They eventually made it outside and, just as Naruto had thought, they were surrounded by dozens, possibly hundreds of those same creatures, possibly hundreds, and all of them were floating towards them. Attack. Roared Animal Man as he shifted into a large green tiger, diving into the fiery army without hesitation. The group split up, taking on as many creatures as they could in hopes of escaping. Creating a dozen shadow clones, Naruto grinned as he and his copies pulled out a kunai, wielding it like a knife as they hacked and slashed their way through. But there were too many of these creatures. One by one, Naruto's clones popped out of existence as the fiery army continued their relentless attack. And something was wrong. His injuries should have healed, and his chakra should have been replenished, but they weren't. Even as he stabbed one of the creatures in the head, Naruto could tell that his reserves were only at 50%. One of the creatures got lucky as they swiped, their claws slashing across Naruto's back as he fell forward. He didn't know what hurt more, the fact that his back was slashed, or the fact that the creature's claws were made of fire, so his cuts were cauterized. The pain was agonizing, but Naruto gritted his teeth as jumped away from another attack, throwing his kunai and killing the creature at the same time. As he landed on his side, Naruto was aware of a green eagle flying down and landing near him, changing back into Animal Man. Get up, the man ordered, with little interest in Naruto's injuries. Scowling, Naruto stood up, doing his best to ignore his back flaring in excruciating pain. Thanks for helping me up, Naruto muttered sarcastically with a frown, not liking this version of Beast Boy. Just what happened with the former goofy Changeling. Noticing something, Naruto saw a green triceratops in the distance and a green gorilla nearby. How? Naruto questioned, confused as to how there were multiple green animals when there should only be one. No time for that, Animal Man answered, punching a creature away with a great amount of strength. Damn it, there are too many of these things. They're blocking all our exits. Why are there so many? Naruto asked as he summoned more and more shadow clones. And how did they surround us like this? We should have seen them all from a mile away. Phasing through the floor, Kitty appeared and quickly grabbed Naruto and Animal Man's arm, allowing a fireball to fly through them harmlessly. It must have been Mammoth, said the girl, having heard Naruto's questions. He got away and told his master where we are. Then she's near, Animal Man said, his eyes looking around with a heated glare as he tried to find the creature's master. This is our chance. Chance? Naruto repeated with confusion. What chance? Ignoring the man, Animal Man looked to Kitty. Find Bobby and Blackfire. I want the three of you to draw their attention for as long as you can, understand? Kitty didn't answer, but her eyes showed she did understand as it showed her fear. Isn't there anything else that can be done? She tried asking. Do you understand? Animal Man snarled, glaring at the girl who took a few steps back. She still nodded, not trusting her voice. Then go. Turning around, Kitty looked at Naruto with a sad smile, seeing his confusion. Goodbye, she said quietly before running away and towards where she knew her friends were. If Naruto was confused before, he wasn't anymore. He recognized that kind of goodbye, having seen it only once before from Haku, right before he sacrificed himself to save his master. If you want something to do then go help them, Animal Man began to say before Naruto suddenly punched him hard on the jaw, sending the green man to the ground. What the hell is wrong with you? Naruto shouted. You're using your own friends. However, instead of looking angry that he was attacked, Animal Man stood and held his jaw. But his gaze on the blonde still showed his anger as he spoke. They understand the mission. They're willing to die to save this world. And you're willing to let them die. Aren't they your friends? My friends are dead, Animal Man growled, shocking Naruto. I watched Cyborg as he was torn apart 14 years ago. Not long after that, Starfire was taken and tortured, we never saw her again. And Robin was the last to go 3 years ago. His heart was literally ripped out of his chest as he tried to stop the demon's master from killing me. I barely made it out alive, he said, his hand idly tracing the scars across his chest. And Raven? Naruto asked, feeling as though he already knew the answer. However, before he could answer that, Animal Man's eyes widened as a ring of fire suddenly appeared around him and Naruto. Look out. He shouted, pushing Naruto out of the ring just as the fire erupted into a pillar, incinerating everything inside. Naruto tried to run back in before the fire erupted, but it was too late. He was forced to move back as the fire of the pillar was too hot and intense for him. Beast Boy. Naruto shouted, forgetting that Animal Man doesn't go by that name anymore. The flames stopped and vanished, the only evidence of that they had been there was the scorch mark surrounding the area. His instincts going off, Naruto dodged to the side and avoided a fireball that was aimed right at him. He was forced to run away as the attacks continued to rain down from above, making Naruto hide behind an overturned car. Taking a deep breath, Naruto tried not to think about Animal Man's death and carefully glanced around the corner of the car, trying to see who was hell-bent on attacking him. His eyes scanned through the flaming army, but not one of those creatures paid him any attention as they focused on Iceman, Kitty, and Blackfire, who were fighting to the best of their abilities. Glancing up, Naruto grinned as he just spotted a figure on top of the pizzeria the hideout was in. Getting an idea, he crossed his fingers and shouted, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Creating as many clones as he could as well as a big smoke cloud. Now surrounded by 100 identical copies, Naruto panted a little. That cost him more chakra than he thought it would, but he would have to make do for now. Each clone knew exactly what to do as they all shouted, as one, charge. Before running towards the fiery creatures. Naruto joined them, jumping into the fray as he attacked as many enemies as he could. His plan was working as clones were destroyed one by one, creating a rather large cloud of smoke. Using this, Naruto ran through it, hiding as he ran towards the pizzeria undetected. Not wasting any time, he jumped and ran up the wall as fast as he could, reaching the top of the building in seconds. He reached the top, taking out a kunai, just in case the person knew he was approaching. But the figure, wearing a large black cloak, didn't seem to notice him as they had their back to him, probably too focused on the chaos below. Slowly and quietly, Naruto approached the person, but as he did, he realized that the black cloak was actually a dark blue color. A familiar dark blue. Then, all of a sudden, black energy appeared from the ground and wrapped around him, making sure to keep his hand separated and away from any pockets. They twisted his arm, forcing Naruto to drop his weapon. That can't be, Naruto whispered, staring at the energy that held him against his will. Only one person could use this type of ability, and if they were wearing a blue cloak, then that could only mean one thing. Raven. Naruto shouted happily, realizing who this person was. But the person didn't move. Instead, they laughed, revealing themselves to be a woman. "No, I'm not her," she said, her voice familiar but also different, confusing Naruto greatly. The woman turned, her hood blocking her face as she slowly walked over to Naruto. She wore a dark purple one-piece leotard with black bands going down her arms and legs, with metal boots going up to her knees, as well as metallic gloves with claws. But what drew Naruto's attention was the object that held the woman cloaked together. It was his headband. It was cracked and damaged, but it was his. Once the woman reached him, she moved her hands up and lowered her hood, revealing her dark blue eyes and 2 whisker marks on each cheek. "Hello, father," she said, laughing as Naruto gained a shocked look. What if Naruto was sent to Teen Titans End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.